Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, to MBR, or as we like to call it around here, Nothing But Rants, the show where I find topics that I'm oddly passionate about and I pontificate upon them. These are not hot takes, but rather takes that I'm hot about. What's up? You really like that?
Let's shut up and grind some tape.
What is up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back inside the studio here at the Film Guy Network headquarters. You know, we're here almost a year. We've still yet to name this place. Mom's Basement's had a little run. We've been hanging out with that for a while. But welcome back in. Hope the show sounds, feels, and looks very familiar to you folks who have returned to us. For those of you who are new, welcome in. Have a loaded show for you guys tonight. Hit that thumbs up button, like, subscribe, rate, review, all that good stuff. I want to start with this right here. If you're going to be loud, particularly about your business moves and your operation strategy, you better have a lot of leverage. If you're going to be out here talking a big game, you better have all the cards in your deck or in your hand. In other words, you better be able to wield some leverage. You better actually have some power if you're going to be out here spiting off and making it loud. And that brings us to today's news. It was kind of announced and revealed, even though it was on the foresight. We all saw it coming if you've been reading the tea leaves and paying attention to what's been happening in court. Clemson and Florida State have kind of tucked their tail on this whole we want to leave the ACC stuff, at least for the time being. There is a window, right? By August 15th of this year, if you've got the money and if you've got the willingness and if you've got the leverage to get up out of your TV contract, you have to let the ACC know by August 15th. It has been reported today that Florida State and Clemson will let that deadline go by. They will play in the ACC for this year, most likely in 2025 and 2026. Why are they letting this go despite all this noise that they want to be leaving? Well, because they've been kind of getting their ass kicked in court right now. They have no legal grounds for getting out of this TV contract without paying a hefty sum. It's also why you've seen Florida State reach out to private equity money and get involved in the private equity money. I believe it's 6 point something with the private equity firm. They've getting flushed with private equity money in hopes and ideals that they're going to be able to buy themselves out of their ACC contract. However, they have been trying left and right to do every legal, measure and take every legal mean they possibly can to make sure that if they do want to get out of this ACC contract, it will cost them as minimal as humanly possible, at least legally possible. The only problem, like I said, they're getting their butt whipped right now and handed to them in court. Because why wouldn't they? As the ACC commissioner, alluded to today, every member school ran to the table to sign this TV grant and this rights contract 5 or 6 years ago. And now all of a sudden you're throwing a hissy fit because you want out of it. That's not how this works. All right. It's not how this works at all. And even if they do, even if Florida State and Clemson want to get out of this right now, they're losing so bad in court that it will virtually cripple them financially in order to do so, at least at this rate. Okay. And again, that's just to leave. That's just or just the part of the discussions of, hey, we want to get out of here. Well, they've made it so ugly and so loud that they want to get out of here. They've not only pissed off their current partner, but legally they have no grounds and no leverage. Okay, so they've pissed off their current partner and they've made it so loud. Well, guess what else? They don't really have a landing place to go either, because the SEC's made it pretty damn clear. They want nothing to do with a member who's just making it loud and throwing a hissy fit for their current conference. We don't want to sign up for that. That's not in Greg Sankey's best interest, nor is it the best interest of the 16 member schools currently in the SEC. So the SEC's like, you know what? We don't want nothing to do with them either. By the way, the Big Ten been real awfully quiet about this one. And by the way, closely aligned, publicly aligned with the SEC, who said publicly, we don't want nothing to do with them. So the SEC wants nothing to do with them. The Big Ten wants nothing to do with them. They've pissed off their current conference, leaving nothing but the Big 12. So now we got the Big 12, right? Oh, that's all great, except for if you think the Big 12 is going to look at FSU and Clemson, who, by the way, just laid out to you, has no bargaining power. They have no other conference that is even sniffing them right now. Their current conference is pissed, and there's just the Big 12 left. You think the Big 12, who is showing every signs that they are in search and in desperate need of more capital, so much so that they're willing to sell the naming rights to their conference, they're willing to get into bed with the private equity firms. They're obviously cash stricken. You think they're going to turn around, look at Florida State and Clemson and go like, man, we really do like you guys. And just because we like you guys, we're going to bid on this and we're going to allow you to come into our conference as if you have other options. No, they're going to hold their feet to the fire because they know what we know. They have no leverage. They've just been loud and cantankerous and honestly a little bit arrogant about their intentions here. Okay, very arrogant. If you want to move and if you want to do some shaking, do it quietly and do it with the leverage, if you have any. And the only teams that have been able to do this are Texas and Oklahoma. You know why? Because they were the only ones left that had true leverage. USC and Oregon had it. Washington apparently had it. Guess who doesn't right now? Florida State and Clemson. And at least Florida State has been very, very loud and cantankerous about all of this. Clemson's kind of just sat on their hands and let the other ones do all the yelling and the hollering and the hooting and get all the public criticism. But guys, they have no leverage either. They're just doing this quietly. It's a little bit I don't even know, preposterous is the right word. Arrogance is the correct word in my opinion, because guys, you cannot be this loud with no leverage. You just can't do it. You can't be out here talking this big game when you have no bite in you at all.
Yeah, no, the only explanation is that Florida State looked at the situation where Oregon and Texas and Oklahoma are leaving all these prestigious conferences and said, we're Florida State. We just almost went to the playoffs. Surely someone's going to want to take us. We'll find some way to get out of this ACC contract. And the fact that they were so, like you said, boisterous about it made it almost, I don't want to say come across as desperate, but it made it very clear that they wanted to get out of the ACC. So at that point, you lose leverage.
The wording from the ACC commissioner, I watched his opening press conference before we went on air today. The wording from the ACC commissioner was so stern and so frustrated with these two football teams. It was pointed. It was very much so pointed. Disrespectful, I think, was a word that came out of his mouth with regards to the actions from Florida State and Clemson.
Well, I mean, he's not the only one that I feel is perturbed about it, because I think Greg Sankey is too. Mm-hmm. I mean, when he was talking about Georgia missing out on the playoffs last year, he explicitly mentioned that, well, Georgia also didn't go complaining and throwing their hands up like somebody, like he didn't specifically mention Florida State, but everybody knew who he was talking about. Yep. So that to me shows that he's also kind of frustrated and perturbed with them.
UCF caught a stray there about the hanging national title banners. That was a little bit uncalled for. Don't shoot down. You know what I mean? You're very much so shooting down when you take a shot at UCF, even though they do claim that banner because they beat an SEC team in a Chick-fil-A bowl, but we don't have to talk about that, Auburn. But no, I think this is a classic example of someone just talking a loud game and trying to make everyone know that they're so pissed off. But they did so spurning their other potential hosts. You know what I mean? You can't be so angry and such a problem at the party you're currently at and expect invites to the other ones. That's not how this works. That's not how any of this works. Clemson, however, is kind of catching strays. My mom used to say guilty by association. Yeah. You don't have to do the bad deeds, but if you're in the circle of the group that does the bad deeds, you're guilty by association.
Yeah, it's obvious that Clemson's not the main proponent of this kind of wanting to leave the ACC, but the fact that they are tied to Florida State, a team that has, or a school that has been so boisterous and so outspoken, kind of talking down on the ACC at this point, it makes sense that you'd tie Clemson into this and be disappointed in them.
And are we 100% sure, I'm speaking out loud here, are we 100% sure that the Big 12 is superior to the ACC? Aren't they just leaving a third or a second-ranked or a second-rate conference to go to another slightly better second-rate conference?
I don't even know.
And logistically, it's just more difficult for them?
I don't even know if it's better. I think it's just the fact that the dollar signs are there.
Yeah.
It's all about that's the main thing. Like, I don't think there's anything in the Big 12 that you could say outside that would offer more than the ACC.
But to me, the Big 12 strategy right now is no different, and not to be political, it's no different than sometimes than our own economic strategy, where it's like, oh, we don't have enough money, let's just print some more. Mm-hmm. That's what the Big 12 is doing right now. We don't have enough money, let's get some from the private equity firms, and then we'll give that to some of our schools. What? how does that equate to balance and power 10 years from now when private equity turns around and goes, hey, we'd like some return on our investment, and they look at us and go, hey, well, the only influx in cash we've had in the last decade was you giving us $800 million. We appreciate that, but we're still back to a net neutral here. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
This is why, to me, the private equity money has never really made sense in terms of the interest in getting into college football. Hey, college football is this big business. Really? Well, where's all the net revenues? Well, they get spent on Title IX. Okay. Well, just because you influx it with private equity money doesn't mean we just get to bypass Title IX. I've never understood how private equities are going to turn around and expect money out of this. That's always been very confusing to me. And even much so to an extent of they're going to get invested into a conference.
Well, especially in a product like the Big 12, where it's at this point, it's far inferior to a Big 10 or the SEC. Like, you can argue that the SEC would be somewhat profitable if you got these outside investors in, but the Big 12, like, what is there in the Big 12 right now that's going to be drawing it?
Deion Sanders. Welcome into tonight's show. We have a loaded one for you. SEC Media Day reactions. We're going to get them for the boys. Yours truly was obviously out there in Dallas. Look, I think I was awarded best dress, at least from those not on ESPN airwaves. Even though we did make our appearance on ESPN airwaves.
You were told this. You were told this.
I was told this. I was not. This is not self-aggrandizing. This is general consensus. Your boy had that shit on. So that's what happened last week. We're going to talk a little bit about it from a realistic storyline standpoint, not just talk about the boys' suits today, including who won the week. We'll give you best speech, worst speech, best moment, and I'll be making a commitment to an SEC football coach that won me over this week. That's always fun. We have our top-ranked, most all-in football teams for this football season. These are the programs that, hey, if they lose this year, if all those chips and they flop out, okay, and they lose the hand this year, they are completely, their wife's leaving them. They have to go into Gambling Anonymous. They got to do all of it because they have lost every bit of the house note on this year's season. All in football programs. We're also going to take a look at all of the questions around the not 2024 season, but the 2025 season based off the spinoff of the conversation of the all in. And I can't believe it, but there's a documentary coming out on Connor Stallions, and believe it or not, that's not the craziest thing about that story, in my opinion. I think the craziest thing about that story is very open and apparent based off the fact that the story is happening. They're going to make a documentary. That blows my mind. I want to give a quick shout out to our friends over at Prize Picks. If you have not already, head over to prizepicks.com. Use promo code Brooks. You'll get a 100% deposit match. What does that mean? You put up to $100. You will instantly get matched in your account today with $100 as long as you are indeed a new user. Okay? Promo code Brooks will get you that. If you are not a new user, if you've already done what I've asked you to do, just go get some plays in. It's always fun to head over to Prize Picks and get some action. WNBA going on right now. I know there's a lot of easy selections over there to be made. Tomorrow's Taco Tuesday. Lots going on over at Prize Picks. Promo code Brooks. Make sure you're hitting that thumbs up button, like, subscribe, and rate and review. And if you miss any portion of today's broadcast, it is readily available, however, wherever you get your podcast. How we doing, boys? It's been a week off. Did you enjoy your week off? Did you actually take it off, or what'd you do?
There was a lot of things going on last week.
Yeah,
a lot of college football.
Cryptic, love that.
Going on.
Love that. Oh yeah, a lot of work to be done is what you're saying from a news reporting standpoint.
There was that.
Love to hear that. How about you, Curb?
Other than working and covering SEC Media Days, I played a lot of pickleball.
I was about to make fun of you for pickleball. I don't know why, but did you pick up CrossFit when CrossFit first came out?
Hell no.
No?
No.
Pickleball is the new CrossFit. Pickleballers can't play pickleball without letting everybody know where they play pickleball. Man showed up to the stew with his pickleball paddles, not 1, 2, in the bag right here. Love that. Okay, no different than CrossFitters have to let you know they CrossFit. There's generally more categories of this, of things that make you require to tell people that you do them. I'll think of another. We'll have a list of this together. Huh?
Hiking.
Yeah,
people who are really into that, they always got to let you know.
No. People who are into hiking don't have to tell you they're into hiking. You can smell it on the Patagonia that they're wearing. Okay, but pickleballers and CrossFitters, they casually bring this up in conversation like, hey, how was your week off? Well, I got some work done and I played some pickleball. Had he been a CrossFitter, that would have been, I got some work done and I got my wads in, So, besides
what am I supposed to say when you ask me what I did?
I don't know.
Like,
I don't know.
That's interesting.
It's just that category. Y'all know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like I don't work it into conversations.
You just did.
No, you asked me what I did and I answered. That's
it was
not
a general conversation. You worked it in.
You asked what if someone asks you what you do and then you answer, they go, "Oh my God!" They're always talking about
Slam pack loaded show. Absolutely slammed tonight. SEC Media Day reactions, boys. We're going to start out with best speech. Now, I don't know what the categories are. Out of clarifications of the categories, I should say. I know what the categories are. But best speech, who wants to go first?
I really liked Steve Sarkisian for these couple of reasons right here. I really liked what he said about earning respect in this conference. You don't just come in, you walk in, you get the SEC logo slapped next to you, and it's like everybody respects you because you're now part of this conference. He talks about we have to come into this conference and we have to earn everybody's respect in this conference. Thought it was really cool that he gave a shout out to Nick Saban as well. I thought that was a nice nod and tip of the cap to him. And then he talked about the idea of obsession. This is something that Kirby Smart throws around as well, but the idea that his team made the college football playoff last year, and that's all great. You kind of reach your goal a little bit of getting back to what the standard used to be at Texas, but he also mentioned of that happened, but then we also got back. Every player wanted to come back and get better. They wanted to focus on this next season. So those three key points to me made Sarkisian stand out.
And Sark was in my notes, and I'll kind of go ahead and spoil this part of my best speech award. I thought of all the coaches, Sark addressed while also doing this, talking about obsessions and hitting the key points and sounding professional and doing the coachisms, but he also addressed every single part of his program apart from Arch. Like, he didn't want to talk about Arch. That was clear in his opening statement. Of course, Dennis Dodd asked him about Arch with the first question that he had to answer, but he addressed everything from we have an SEC transition. We're going to earn it through respect. We're not necessarily, I need to say we're not worried about it, but we've built our roster upon beating an SEC team anyways. He talked about that. That was going to be one of the things that people were going to ask him. It's like, hey, how do you feel like you're ready for this transition? Hit the nail on the head. Got all these new transfers. Hit the nail on the head. We got some returning offensive line production. Hit the nail on the head. There was just so much. Intentional was the word I used coming back off that one. Was like everything that he had an intensive purpose to it, and it had an exact point to where it was going. So I thought Sark hit the nail on the head as well. What you got?
I predicted this was my kind of nomination going into it, and I said I thought Kirby Smart would have one of the best speeches because he is one of the best speakers, and he gave another great one. The way he talked about his team's expectations, kind of not worrying about last year, moving forward, things such as that. It's also the way he commands the room when he walks in. You can tell that he doesn't really want to do that stuff, but he does it so well and puts on such a good attitude about it that it's almost impressive. So I felt Kirby Smart had one of the better speeches there.
I was a little disappointed. I'm not
really.
Gonna lie.
You know why? Because we've heard the assume nothing thing. He gave it to us this spring.
Yeah,
that's why. I feel like had that been new, I feel like I would have gotten something out of that. He would have gotten me to say He got me to say on two things: the learn someone's name.
Yep.
Brooks. My dad was a huge Brooks Robinson fan. Thomas, I'm named after my grandfather. Austin is the last name. Okay, you just learned about me. Pops liked baseball. Okay, and I'm named after my grandfather, who I have a very tight relationship with. Boom, there it is. Right? I never thought about this organizational practice. We don't have to do it on air right now, but maybe we'll do it another time. So I thought that was nice, and then dope. And then the other one was the watchdog. Like how he doesn't really obsess about one side of the football. He obsesses about everything from top to bottom being done well during practice. So he's constantly walking around being an overseer of everything. And the only way to do that is to be, to know the standard and to be able to coach everything as well. And that's something that he doesn't necessarily have a full background in. He's never been an offensive coordinator, but he obviously knows offensive football. He knows how he wants his systems implemented and coached and taught and ran during practice. I thought that was awesome. So yeah, Kirby, I'm with you on that one. Yeah. I put down Sark. I thought Venables had the juice and had the right words. He was very clearly nervous, and he very clearly ran out of breath. I talked about this on air. I think it was Wednesday when we did a show. He like sprinted to podium. Okay, he like one step skipped the steps. Okay, this is how much juice man had coming to the podium, and he very clearly first 4 or 5 sentences was still trying to catch his breath. But you could tell defensive coordinator, lots of juice. The only thing that kind of gives me hesitation is that the beat reporters that I talk to, because you know me, I'm gonna walk over and be like, hey man, first time I've heard man's talk. Lots of energy from a man. Clearly has a lot of confidence about speaking to a room and directing the narrative. And they said, well, yeah, that's great. He just doesn't show that confidence in every aspect of like what it takes to be a head coach. He does that, I guess, when he stands up and talks to the defensive room, but maybe he doesn't have that confidence in everyday aspects of being a head coach. How could you? It's your first time doing it. So I thought Venables had the juice, had the right initiatives, clearly ran out of it. Outside of that, I thought it was a winless week. I don't think anybody stood up at that podium and made me walk away thinking, damn, homeboy hit a home run today.
No, I
thought it was very melancholy and mediocre across the board.
Yeah, the speeches the year before in 2023, I felt like were much stronger for some reason. I don't know. Like even last year, we said like Brian Kelly had a really, really good speech, and this year it seemed like he was kind of nervous. I don't know if it's because he had to go first or whether he wasn't ready, but there's a lot of there was a lot of pauses, a lot of kind of interesting, like just like we've got one of these, we're really excited about that. Then we've got these guys returning, we're really excited about them. It's a really great year for us. Very monotone, didn't seem very excited. So
first one off the bus is tough.
Yeah,
first one off.
He was best dressed though.
He was best dressed. That suit was clean.
Very.
What do you got?
think that kind of like the winless week thing that you're talking about had anything to do with the fact that this was the first time since 2018 that the national champion didn't reside in the conference?
Ooh, that's a little take. I mean, potentially. I think it had much more to do with the fact that I think coaches now are there to not make news.
Yeah,
when they're on that podium. And maybe there's so much turnover in these rosters, they don't really know what they have anyways.
Yeah.
Yet. You know what I mean?
You know that,
like even Georgia, they think they know, but he doesn't know what he has. He hadn't even seen Jurasic pad up yet. He doesn't know.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Well, this is also one of the more turbulent off seasons you've had in college. You added 2 teams in. You're going to a new playoff expansion. There's been a litany of things going on in the off season that you haven't had to deal with before. There's NIL, stuff like that. So, I mean, it could just be these guys are burnt out. That's like, all right, SEC Media Days, I'm just going to go in, mail it in, answer some questions, and fly out the next day.
That was a good point, though, you made, because, I mean, come to think of it, like any of the big news that kind of came out of last week was it was on Radio Row. It was somebody that somebody said something on radio. Somebody was on Paul Feinbaum. Somebody was on the SEC Network set and said something. Like, it was everything about that. It was nothing that was at the podium or any question.
Yeah,
really.
they have half the time to give script. You know what I mean? We got our PR team writing, or we're going to write a speech, and then we're going to give it to the PR team. They're going to wipe it anyways. And then we're going to go up there. We're going to be a robotic coach for 15 to hopefully 17 and a half minutes. We'll answer 8 questions. We'll dodge around, and then we'll get out of the room. And hopefully, if we're Lane Kiffin, someone doesn't ask about sleeping with my mom, you know, in the TV room, like what happened last year.
That would be a low ball at that.
You don't remember that happening last year?
No, I remember it happened last year, but given circumstances of this year's, that would be a little bit off brand or off, you know, topic, considering what happened with Monty, you know, the week before. But nonetheless, you get what I'm saying. Like, that room in the main room that everyone sees on television, that is buttoned up as buttoned up can be. They seem to be a little bit more of themselves off the main stage, especially when they apparently sit down with Paul Feinbaum, which we'll talk about here in a second. Worst speech, I'll go first. Heupel has got to find some foos. Look, I don't know if it's required, but I think it's kind of required. Okay, except for Belichick, he got away with this, but Belichick in closed rooms can obviously turn it on. He can become a gravitating personality. I'm not saying you have to have this. However, if you rattle off some of the best coaches, I think a lot of them can stand up in any room and be magnetic, right? They can draw people towards them. They can command the room. They can have people listen to them. For example, could Kirby Smart run a Fortune 500 company if it were in his trade? Probably. If he were educated enough, he could get up there in front of people and run the room and have people instill belief in complete strangers. Okay, you don't have to know Kirby knows 100% of what he's talking about for you to believe in it. That is a very unique gift to leaders that are oftentimes great football coaches as well. I feel this way about Sarkisian. I feel like Sarkisian could be a Fortune 500 CEO. I feel like Kalen DeBoer could do this. I feel like you talked about Brian Kelly doing the but most of the time, Brian Kelly's buttoned up when he goes to these things. He brings the juice. He commands the room. Heupel, I know, is a great offensive coach, and he showed really, really good results, borderline great results as a head coach. However,
there is a level of magnetism that a lot of these great football coaches in college have. You know why? Because they have to be great recruiters. And we've seen Heupel's a good recruiter, but Heupel has not recruited at a top 5 level. And I think part of that might be this lack of magnetism. And I'm not saying he had a really, really bad speech. I'm just saying when he walks into the room, it's very much so ho-hum. All right. And I think he's getting ho-hum results anywhere from 8 to 15 in recruiting rankings. And yeah, he might be able to coach his way up to a top number 1 offense with an 8 to 15 recruiting ranking, but he's not going to have a top 10 defense or a top 25 defense as well. Okay, because he's going to have to go get dudes on that side of the football, and in order to do so, he's going to have to be magnetic. I'm just something I'm paying attention to moving forward, because 2 years in a row now, I've seen a guy get up there and not feel or not seem to be very comfortable, or at least caring enough to give us the foos, to be magnetic in a fake, CEO, brand of the company, face of the company type of way. All right, and again, not necessarily a requirement, but find me the guy who didn't check it.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
I don't know if it's necessarily you even need foos. I think it's just you need to go up there and make the audience feel like you genuinely care about what you're talking about. Like, I don't think Nick Saban necessarily had foos. Like, Nick Saban didn't come out and was high energy, but you really thought that he cared about what he was telling you.
Correct. But sometimes you're not going to care. And
right.
Sometimes you got to fake the care.
Right.
And I don't think Nick Saban truly meant every single time he opened up with, I want to thank the media for doing your job. But he said it like he meant it. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? He said it with some purpose, and he said it with some energy,
right?
And conveyed that. And even if it's a foos might not be the right word, but the magnetism is, right? You have to be able to convince people that what you're saying is true, or what you're saying you believe in. All right, and you have enough energy and purpose behind it. And that sometimes, the intentionality we talked about with Sark, that sometimes I think is missed with Heupel. And again, maybe he's not this. Neither was Gus Malzahn. Gus Malzahn's a great offensive mind, but Gus Malzahn clearly lacks some of the things required to be a great football coach, not a really, really good football coach. Again, something I'm just paying attention to moving forward.
Right.
All right, and the other one, that's not even my suggestion for worst speech. The worst speech, I don't think it's close to, in my opinion, because he misled himself and he misled representations or expectations rather of his program. Shane Beamer getting up and telling his fan base and telling the world that the expectations and the standard for South Carolina football are to compete for college football playoff spots. That to me is wild. Okay, because though he may not get fired for cause, he might as well now, because when he walks into that athletic department's office, if I were a good lawyer, I've been watching Suits lately, the sumbitch just gave us probable cause to fire him when he goes 5-7 this year, because he just told the world the standard is not 500 football. The standard is to compete for college football playoffs, and guess what? They ain't doing that this year. I don't believe so. You don't believe so. And to be truthful, I don't think he believes so. Mm-hmm. All right. But he led everybody else to believe that. And he also led everybody else to believe that that's the standard. So if that's the standard, and when you don't live up to that this year, you might need to be let go, because you let everybody believe that you think that is possible.
He's the wrong kind of pissed off. You shouldn't be pissed off about people expecting underwhelming results this year for your football team. You should be pissed off that your football team is in this position and that you've had this 5-7 season, not even bowl eligible last year, and you're heading into year 4 and nothing feels like it's changing. In fact, it feels like it's going the other direction. Be pissed off at yourself. Be pissed off at what has happened at South Carolina under your watch, not pissed off that some media members are thinking you're going to finish 13th in the conference.
Also, you got picked to win the damn East by like a quarter of the SEC media last year, and I didn't hear nothing. I didn't hear nothing on social media about, hey, thanks for believing in us. No, I didn't hear anything about that. And we don't hear it in the reverse. And you can't do the standard is the standard talk and then 90 seconds later talk about how you know everyone's going to pick you as 13th. Dude, if the standard was all that mattered, you wouldn't care about the outside noise. So it's very weird to me, and it wasn't even about how he said it, what he said, because again, I think the guy is a very good public speaker. In fact, I think he can win a lot of rooms. He has some of this magnetism. I think it's honestly why he got the job in the first place, because people believe in him when he talks, except for we have 4 years now of data points that say what the lip service is don't match the output and the outcome, and I think it was a grave mistake to be out here talking about the standard being college football playoff contention when they are so far from being able to contend for that.
Yeah, it's just like, I think back to that clip of him. I think it was his first year at South Carolina where they played Georgia. He gets asked about what their defense did that made them struggle so much. And he goes on this tangent about how they have all these 5-stars and they have all these really good players. And in that moment, it feels like Shane Beamer is pissed that they don't have that yet. So in that moment, you're pissed off at the right thing. You're pissed off that your roster is not where it could be to compete with Georgia. But now, 3 years down the road, you're pissed off at all the wrong things that don't even matter, that can't even control your program.
Yeah, he definitely didn't do himself any favors this year. And as someone who's on one of the hotter seats this year coming in, you have to go in and kind of build goodwill and saying, hey, we really want to compete for playoff spots this year. What wasn't acceptable, and I know you're going to put us at the 13th spot, but we don't care. He was all over the place, and it did not look good for him.
The college football playoff is the standard, is the stuff you open with when you take the job. It is not the stuff you follow with after year 3 when you went 5-7 with a returning starting quarterback who's NFL caliber. That's not the time to come out there and do that. So yeah, I think that was a pretty large mistake. Who else we got for worst speech?
I put Brian Kelly just because it was such a letdown from the year before. Last year, I feel like the three of us really raved.
Last year had juice. We all liked him last year.
Yeah, last year we really raved about how he had such a really good speech, and we were all very impressed with it, especially coming off of what they did, where you won the West, you beat Alabama, you were a very competitive team in year 1, and then coming in year 2, coming after year 2, he just didn't seem like he wanted to be there. He didn't really seem like he was organized. He seemed kind of nervous. Now, he had to go first. It was like 9 in the morning when he went. I understand that, but it was not the same Brian Kelly we saw last year. I think that's probably why it was this one. I don't know if it was objectively the worst speech, but it was the biggest letdown for me.
That's fair.
Mm-hmm. I'm on the Beamer wagon on that one.
We're on the Beamer wagon of that was a bit much, my boy. I thought Napier did enough spinning. I think, telling people you're on schedule was a little bit clickbaity. They obviously ran with that. He didn't say that on the main podium. They pinned him up in the his SID got to get some reins on that one. I saw a video of Billy getting pinned up on a wall by like 7 national reporters, and I'm like, yo, no SID should be letting that happen. He should be over there in the private room by himself with beat reporters first, and then he should be walked directly to the 4 radio stations that y'all agreed upon, and then he should go up there on the stage, and then he should go up there on the television stage, and then he should leave. There should be nothing else. There should not be quotes of Billy Napier saying he's on schedule or the Florida program is on schedule before he goes up to the podium to speak, before he actually gives a statement. That was wild to me, and he got put in a bad spot there. And I don't know what he's supposed to say other than, I think we're on track, maybe not on schedule. I think we're on track. We had some miscues last year, and maybe you can give some coach speak about how we had some unfortunate circumstances. What are those? You don't have to get into it. Just say it was unfortunate, but we're on the right track. We feel good about this year. I love our team, yada, yada, yada. There was some wording there, but again, I think it's more on the SID than it was on Billy, because Billy got pinned up by people he was not expecting to get pinned up on, it looked like to me.
Yeah, just kind of one of those questions of like, kind of like, what are you supposed to say? What are you supposed to do in that moment? You can't really just like say like, oh, well, not looking too good this year.
You notice what I'm talking about, right? Though he was the only SEC coach I saw with a pool of reporters around him with getting quotes outside of a radio hall interview or outside of the stage or outside of SEC Network. Man got pinned up and no one else did. And that to me was a little bit of an oversight there by their SID department. I'm not saying you got to shield these guys. I'm just saying you got to limit the amount of exposure that they're going to get pit up on, because Dennis Dodd going to hit them with the hammers. All right, the moment he gets them, available to do so, because he's a national beat reporter, or he's a national reporter. That's his job to get that quote and to have everybody laughing at Florida about their head coach thinking they're on schedule when they just failed to meet a bowl game.
Right.
Not great. All right, and they made a bowl game last year, didn't they?
No.
5-7. Tough. We had some worse speeches. We're good. Best moment. I think best moment was obvious from SEC Media Day. I have some personal best moments. Paul Feinbaum was dope.
You being on the show.
Yeah, being on Feinbaum was dope. Now we just got to get on the television hours, because the first 2 hours are radio only, second 2 hours are television. Now we just got to get this mug in this studio on SEC Network on real television. That'll be dope. That's for this season. I think we're going to have an opportunity to do so at some point this fall. The beat reporter interviews were dope because I got to really ISO Michael, and getting 5 minutes with a Georgia player where it's just you and him kind of talking and actually having a real conversation. That right there is the good stuff. All right, getting 90 seconds, 2 minutes, 3 minutes with a singular player, really getting to have basically a sit-down conversation with him was really, really enjoyable. Outside of that, the best moment from the SEC Media Days was so clear and obvious, and it was Lane Kiffin absolutely putting the torches to Paul Feinbaum.
Yeah.
That was crazy.
That was wild.
It made me feel uncomfortable just reading it.
It made me feel really uncomfortable watching it.
I remember I was watching it live, and I was just like, "Oh my!" Is this
also weird that
it
went viral 24 hours after it happened.
Yeah,
that was even weirder. I think Elon must have been up watching SEC media coverage and be like, "Hold on, whoa! This is gonna eat. We got to put this back on the TL." And then all of a sudden, it went nuts.
Yeah, I read it first, and I was like, and I kind of thought the same thing as you, Christian, of like, this feels like a bit like they were maybe just sitting there laughing. And I was like, I can't really get the tone down on this. So then I went and found the clip, and I was like, oh, this was personal. This was something he'd been waiting and sitting on.
I don't really know what you're good at. Was wild.
Yeah, that's what I was like.
Wild. Confronting him on calling, asking him for him to be fired, and then basically thanking him for doing so because he ended up at Saban, and then also ended up at Ole Miss and yada yada yada. It doesn't happen without you, so thank you. That was like smack. You suck. Also, by the way, don't know really what you're good at.
Crazy.
Boom. Crazy bomb.
I think another good one was Tyler Booker sending a shot at Nick Saban.
Yeah,
because no one ever sends shots at Nick Saban.
No one.
So I mean, the fact that he had the balls to do that, especially as a former player too.
Malachi Morton commented it. I think Jalen Milroe did too. I think Milroe said something like, "That's my guy." But there was one reporter doing it, trying to run and get that quote.
Well, he got one.
He got one.
Good on him.
And of course, it was Tyler Booker. Tyler Booker is the greatest quote. Tyler Booker is going to so steal one of my television jobs in 15 years when he's done playing. That kid is so ready to be on television right now. The most calming smile on an obviously terrifying human. You know what I mean? The rare combination of dude who strikes fear into everybody, and then he smiles, and you're like, oh, that's a nice guy. No, he's a killer. No, he's a killer. Jordan Davis-like in this sense.
Yeah.
That Jordan, everybody thinks, oh my God, what a just a joy. What a incredible human. What a life, a presence of life this individual brings when he walks into a room. Oh, by the way, in between the lines, he'll murder you. The rare combination.
Yeah.
Which is why I immediately put that guy on television. Immediately. Don't even wait, honestly. Tyler, if you're watching, we got a spot for you right here. The next round's probably already got your television contract booked up, but if you want to do some private content, we got some for you, as long as you're not afraid to say something. Looking at you, Rylan. I'm just kidding.
Damn.
It's a hard avenue to be an active player and be talking, because you can't really do it.
No,
you really can't. You can't do it at all. But the comment, for those who didn't read it, we might as well go back to it.
I got it right here. So
you got it. Come on.
Basically, Saban did not pick Alabama to make the SEC championship, and he was asked about it. Tyler Booker's quote was, Coach Saban always taught me not to pay attention to external voices. He always said, don't let some guy who lives in his mom's basement determine how you feel, Booker said. Then he said, so I'm not going to let a guy who plays golf all day determine how I feel.
Bars. Absolute bars from Tyler Booker. Had a pretty cool chain on as well. They all do. The jewelry is immaculate. And look, man, I'm a guy who's always got one on me, but I couldn't imagine rocking some of these massive chains that these dudes rock. Maybe one day I'll have the money to do so and the willingness to do so.
Yeah,
because right now I don't think I can pull it.
I don't think I'd have the willingness to do that.
I think you have to be like sub 28 to be a white guy and rock chains. Non-ironically. Because Kirk Cousins did it ironically, looks cool, all that good stuff.
Like chains like that.
Yeah, I'm talking about big, thick ones.
Okay,
like Joe Burrow's rocking it right now. The day Joe Burrow turns 30, he's got to go chain pendant. He can't be out here rocking the diamond studs. I just don't think. Who's pulled it off? That's what I'm saying. North of 30, what Caucasian has pulled off big, thick chains? I'll wait.
There's got to be one.
There ain't. I'm telling you right now, there is not. And there's plenty of rich, famous white dudes, all right, that are north of 30 that aren't out here rocking chains. Big, thick ones. I think you can rock the diamond pendant the rest of your life.
Watches too.
Watches too. You got it. Are you Googling white dudes who wear chains?
No, I'm not Googling
that
white
would be
dudes,
a crazy Google search. Your algorithm's going to be so jacked.
White dudes wearing chains.
All right. Yeah. I'll give some props to Bryce Harper.
Bruce Hooper's rocking one?
Yeah, not,
All right,
not
he's
like
north
on the
of 30.
daily.
He's like 32. He's got it. He can pull it.
Not on the daily, but like when he does have one on, like, okay, like you have enough swag in yourself to where it doesn't look too bad.
Chat's trying here. Ryan Fitzpatrick, ironically. Paul Wall, rapper, doesn't count. Also, not famous after 30. Right? Mm-hmm. Shout out to Paul Wall. Shout out to Bubba Sparks. Same thing. Doesn't classify. Not famous after 30. Eminem definitely doesn't qualify.
Ooh, I got Conor McGregor.
Not huge chains.
He can pull them. He pulls them off though when he wears them.
All right, so we have to be Conor McGregor. That's what we've established.
We have to be one of a kind.
All right, one of one. So you literally have to be able to beat everyone's ass and have the coolest, accent in the world to be north of 30 rocking big chains. Good thing we nailed that down. I love that. That's the type of primo content you get right here on the Film Guy Network, the one and only. We did best moment. What coach won the week?
You tell us. Who
I got
it from you?
All right, so we're going to save the commitment. Commitment and who won the week, two different things. I think Kalen DeBoer won the week, and here's why. It is so obvious to everyone involved. Everyone, from media members to the people watching at home to the people inside that building, especially the people inside that building. He is so the antithesis of Nick Saban. And I got caught up in this stuff. I got caught up in what y'all should hire from the Saban tree. Keep it most alike, right? Keep it in-house. Make sure you go hire someone that knows the standard. Make sure you go hire someone that knows the region. Make sure you go do this. Make it as similar. Make the transition nice and easy. No. That was so the wrong attitude. That was so the wrong mindset. They had the right mindset. Greg Byrne had the right mindset. Go get someone that's the complete opposite of Nick Saban. You know why? Because anytime Dan Lanning walked in that building, I don't care if it's Dan Lanning. I think Dan Lanning's a great coach, but he would have been following the GOAT, which means anytime Dan Lanning would have walked in there with any drip of Sabanism on him, just any hair of this is the way the old coach used to do it, it would have been coach trying to be coach. Coach is trying to be coach. Coach Lanning is trying to be Coach Saban. Whereas this Kalen DeBoer guy comes in and he's the complete antithesis. He's the complete opposite. They install offense completely differently. They install defense completely differently. Yeah, they kept the strength and conditioning coordinator staff, but the energy around that is totally different. The outcomes around that are totally different. The vibe around the program is totally different. That's first and foremost. The other thing, this guy, questions about recruitment. Well, I'm here to tell you, I wouldn't recruit worse shit in Tacoma, Washington. Because you know why? It's impossible. I wouldn't recruit very well in the Midwest. You know why? It's borderline impossible. But you put me in Tuscaloosa with the nation's best 5-hour radius, meaning I can hop in a car and I can get to Atlanta. I can hop in a car and I can get to Mobile. I can hop in a car and I can get to New Orleans. I can hop in a car and I can get to Memphis. Yeah, you're going to recruit well. You're going to recruit really well. All right, far better than you ever have. So I think he won the week because every single player to a man said, what's the transition been like? Has been great because he hasn't tried to be Nick Saban. You talked about Tyler Booker. That is what he said. What has the transition been like? Well, it's been completely, really smooth and easy because this guy hasn't come in and tried to be like coach. This guy's came in and been himself because he don't know how to be like coach because he's never done anything around Nick Saban. He's never been anywhere near the tree.
I think that's a good perspective of, I think, because everybody's going to get caught up in who are you replacing, especially someone as large as Nick Saban. So it's never even crossed my mind of like it being a good thing that he doesn't even have ties to this, because I think it is important to have something fresh and have something new to you and something that makes you stand out amongst other people. And I think DeBoer absolutely does bring that out.
Look, this is 19 years of Sabanisms ingrained into the entire culture. All right, if Kirby were to leave tomorrow, hiring Dan Lanning's a great decision because it was 9 years. We're not talking about 2 decades of ingrained, and by the way, he's the greatest of all time. And everybody's looking to you to replace this guy. Now it's almost a moot point because they're not similar. They will only be compared to one another via wins and losses. And guess what? That would have been everybody. Everybody was going to be held to that standard, following the GOAT or not.
The longer the offseason goes on, the better this hire looks. I remember the time when it happened, it was like, Alabama had to pick their third best choice. And it's looking more and more like that's the best choice they had because, like you said, he's not like Nick Saban. It's so hard to compare him to that because he's so different. So I agree with you. I think he really hit himself some favors this weekend.
Who else? What coach won the week for you guys?
I can go if you want.
I mean, I'll just continue going with Steve Sarkisian. I was just kind of the one that continued to stand out to me the most. And I think it was kind of like, while he did have some great talking points that stood out to me, I think it was also the fact that he didn't stand out all that much. And, I was just kind of interested because he is one of these coaches that we don't listen to at SEC Media Days every year. It was a first time being at SEC Media Days. And I think he had the right approach, because I think everybody kind of wants to pinpoint your program, pinpoint you as a head coach of, okay, you got to this big stage, you kind of got to your expectations, but you fell short at the same time. So kind of what's the outlook of the program? And you hit it, you talked about too, like having these other big questions of these distractions, if you want to call it, of the QB2 on your roster. That's who everybody wants to talk about, not your starting quarterback who could be a top 15 pick in the NFL draft this year. I think he just handled business really well. I was impressed with Steve Sarkisian.
Yeah, so the way I looked at this, the coach who won the week did the most favors for themselves, kind of changed their outlook for the best. And I think Sam Pittman coming into SEC Media Days, there were really a lot of questions about, like, hey, could this be Sam Pittman's last year at Arkansas? While he didn't do great at the podium, while I don't think he's a great speech giver, what he did on Radio Row and what he did everywhere else really kind of, I don't want to say solidified that he's the right decision there, but it made a positive outlook around him.
Is that George Pickens slumped?
Him getting drafted, you just noticed that?
Yeah, the chat pointed it out first. Where did you buy that shirt?
I can't tell you.
I need
both of y'all love gatekeeping.
That thing is elite.
I'll tell you off air.
You both do that.
But no, so
hey, if you got something fly, it only makes it less fly for other people to have it. And if you don't understand that, then that's on you.
Appreciate it. But so going back to what I was saying, I think Sam Pittman and Radio Row and things such as that was kind of the way he laid out the season was, last year was not an exceptional season for any of us. And we were in 5 games, there were 5 one-score games we had that we lost. We got to change that. Not acceptable, and that starts with me. I think Sam Pittman really did himself a lot of favors this week. I don't think it's necessarily going to be enough to save his job if they're 4-4 come the middle of October. But I think coming into the season, there's some more positive momentum than was prior to the SEC Media Days.
All right, we got a commitment, boys, and it wasn't even close. It was a landslide. And I have to say this first and foremost. I obviously have a very, how do you say this? I'm very partial to the plight of this individual. Okay. But it's Steve Sarkisian. Steve Sarkisian was so intentional and so damn locked in to everything that was about his program and that is about his program and what his program needs to be, and obviously has become obsessive. I found this, and I don't want to speak for Sark, but I found this in my life. The 6 or 7 months after giving up alcohol, I found this immense amount of clarity and the ability to finish whatever I was working on. I felt like I was working on this 85-15 calendar, meaning like 85% of my day I would be working and building towards tomorrow, because that's what we do. We constantly build towards tomorrow. That's how in a year from now we look back and we go, damn, I've improved so much, because we're constantly building for tomorrow. It's what you should be doing, at least. As an alcoholic, I found that 85% of my day would be productive, and then the last 4 or 5 hours of my day I would introduce this alcohol into it, and about 15% of the end of my day would wash. And not only was I wasting that 15%, I wasn't finishing the 100% of my thoughts and my daily objectives. So tomorrow I start back 85% deficient. I have found this in my life, and I can recognize it in Sark's life. The reason it didn't work out the first couple of times at Washington and USC were because that 15% of his day was getting washed, and he just wasn't able to finish everything. All right. And he wasn't able to continue to add on from today to tomorrow. Well, now we've seen a guy for 3.5 years, 4 years, do nothing but add on, right? First year, 5-7, not great. Second year, 7-5, 5 one-score losses. Third year, 10-2, 11-1, college football playoff run. The guy has consistently stacked and gotten it better and better, and you can see it in his speech. You can see it in his daily walk. You can see it in how he performs as a head football coach. The guy has consistently improved, and he is 100% locked in right now. And yeah, I especially considering my personal plight with the issue, I resonate with this individual, and I think he at some point in his career will be on top of college football.
I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't ask this question. Who's the real UT? You got to make a stance now. You picked Texas.
Ooh.
Dude,
got to give the take.
This debate goes off fan size and pool. Okay, so I know the SEC network and the SEC offices did not want to set off their long-standing commitment from Tennessee, but it's obviously Texas.
Yeah.
Okay, this is size matters discussions. All right, and size is no larger than UT. UT big school. UT big brand. UT.
I think it falls in the same category of South Carolina and USC. We call
exactly.
it it's bigger.
We call
brand.
one of those USC Junior.
Yeah.
All right, and they're both relatively 7-5 football programs this year. Mm-hmm. All right, so one of them's USC Junior, and that one draws an SEC paycheck. The other one's the USC that we all know to be the USC. If we talk about UT, everybody in the country, not in the Southeast, everybody in the country goes, "Oh, you must be talking about Texas."
Yeah.
And then we have to go, no, we're talking about the University of Tennessee. No. That's Tennessee. By the way, you can just get called Tennessee. That's fine. You get one state. Or you get a one-name state. That's awesome. You're the only real meaningful school up there. Congrats. But it's UT, and it's Texas. Sorry, Henry, in the chat. Harry, excuse me. Messed your name up and took a shot at your school. That's on me.
This would be interesting if Texas goes 8-4 this year. Then there really will be a Brooks Austin curse.
It really will be. If Steve Sarkisian's out here fighting security guards again and breaking his foot, we might be in trouble.
That's still one of the craziest videos.
Wild.
I don't understand.
Absolutely insane. And I found no one to defend him on that one yet.
Yeah.
No one to say security guard was in the wrong spot. Security guard was
also
a dick. Nothing. None of that.
No one's really like come out and like really criticize him for it. Like the vibe I got around was like, did you see this video? This is crazy. And like no one's ever really like, this is unacceptable. You can't.
Hey man, maybe he was just locked.
You can't treat
you know
people
what I mean?
that way.
Maybe it was just It almost looked like. Have you seen that viral video of the British horse that's standing outside the Queen's palace that bit that lady?
Yeah.
And almost Sark was that horse in that moment. He had the blinders on. He was ready to go FSU, and then all of a sudden the security guard gets his head bit off. Maybe, possibly. Into our next segment, the reason everybody's here, or at least the title that everybody's here tonight. There are a half dozen to a dozen college football teams that are so obvious, chips all on the table, push it all in. This is our window. We've got a shot to compete for a national title. If we don't, we are so in trouble. All right, we are so in trouble. These are teams that have leveraged their future, or at least the financial securities of their boosters, on winning a national title this year. I've got a power ranking 1 to 3, okay, but I've got 2 OLI football teams staring down the barrel of a you better win a national title. Utah. Cam Rising's 19th year of college football. All right. The coach has very publicly flirted with retirement in Coach Whittingham. There is a closing window right now for Utah football. A returning quarterback, a coach that might be leaving you in the foreseeable future. Utah on the outside looking in of my chips are all on the table. You better win a national title this year, or at least make a deep run. Notre Dame kind of feels this way to me. Very roster's really, really good. Quarterback taking a stab at it. Also, by the way, are they just going to be the portal transfer like at the quarterback position? Because I don't see any immediate future. I know they have the Hudson or the youngest. It's the Carr. Hudson Carr, I think is his name. It's Lloyd Carr's grandson. That's their backup in future at the quarterback position right now. The Michigan coach's son or grandson is going to play quarterback at Notre Dame. That's the highest ranked commit that they've had at the quarterback position in the last like 3 or 4 cycles, and we know nothing about him at all. So like Notre Dame's future looks really, really shaky to me right now. It seems like a very push the chips in. All right, now 3, 2, and 1. Number 3 is Ohio State for me. I feel like the roster in the window says they need to win a national title, and they've obviously invested thoroughly in winning a national title. However, they're not 2 or 1 here because it's Ohio State. I feel like Ohio State's got a stab at a national title very often and very frequently because they're Ohio State. As long as I've been alive, they've been a top 10 program. So except for those couple of years where, they got suspended and messed up for tattoos and selling cars and bowl rings. Wasn't that what it was?
Something like that.
They're selling bowl rings in exchange for tattoos. The NCAA thought that was worth getting rid of Jim Tressel. pretty wild. Tennessee thought they had a reason to go to bat with the NCAA in court. I thought Ohio State had one about 15 years ago. But anyways, Ohio State number 3. Number 2 on the list for me is Mizzou. Obviously, we know what they're going to lose this coming up year. Also, I think it's very important to note, you'll never get an easier schedule. As long as the SEC exists moving forward and you're a member of it, this is as easy as a non-divisional schedule is going to get for you. You better run the table or at least get into the college football playoff. You don't have to run the table. I know Bama on the road's in that mix, and that's a tough one. Number 1 for me is so clear-cut and obvious. It's Ole Miss, not only because of the window that you have offensively, what you got coming back, Trey Harris, Juice Wells, paid for Jackson Dart to come back, gave him a private jet, all that good stuff, right? But defensively, you've pushed all the chips in as well over there. Walter Nolan did not come free, all right? You also spent some money on a 5-star a couple years ago that's now a sophomore. You need him to play at a really, really high rate. You've rebuilt the entire defensive measure through the roster. And, oh, by the way, are we all 100% positive that Lane Kiffin's going to be there in like 3 years, or he's not going to take another fancier job? We all feel safe about him being there for the long-term future? No, we're not. Okay, so that on top of the roster addition certainly turns the temperature up rather on the pressure gauge here out there at Ole Miss. Those are my 3.
My OLI, and it's an OLI because I don't think the expectation is national title, but I think it certainly is a push all your chips in, and it's Colorado because you have your best roster that you are going to have right now, and if you're going to make some waves out of Colorado, if you're going to get people to re-believe in your program and re-buy into the hype of Deion Sanders and the Buffaloes up there, it's something's got to happen this year with Travis Hunter and Shadur and Shiloh. Like you have to make people really buy into this program again. This is your best shot at it because next year, what you're not doing on the recruiting trail, what you're trying to do in the transfer portal, I don't see that reigniting anything in the future. So I think it's an all chips in season for Deion Sanders at Colorado for those reasons. I have Ohio State at 3 as well. I have Missouri at 2, but I also want to propose this. The schedule to me maybe doesn't make it an all-in type year for Missouri because while you do lose Brady Cook, Luther Burden going to go to the NFL, I think that Missouri has also done a good job on the recruiting trail as well, and that schedule is manageable enough to where maybe if it like Matt Zollers, if he is a starting quarterback next year and you have Williams Maneri on the defensive side of the football, you still have some headliners on your roster to maybe where it is manageable enough to where you get back into the playoff regardless of what you lose.
Maybe it's manageable that you're the 3rd best team in the SEC another time.
Yeah.
I could see that, even though the recruiting has tailed off dramatically in 25.
Yeah.
So we'll see. We'll see about that because I think he's obviously this offseason, I think he added like maybe 18 to 20 new transfers onto the roster. So he spent a lot of assets there, but that speaks to the win nowness of that roster. Yeah. That's the way I'm looking at this moving forward. If I watch you go out and add 20 guys via the transfer portal, you're telling me you feel like you have to go win right now. And you're doing so with making impactful additions to your roster, guys that can play this fall. We'll see about them this fall. I'm with you, though. The pressure is pretty high. Who else we got? We got your 3 next?
Yeah, so I mean, Ole Miss and Ohio State, I feel like are the consensus. We all agree they're 1 and 2. You can flip them wherever you want. I put Virginia Tech at 3. I put Virginia Tech at 3 because
18 returning starters.
They have 95% returning production on offense, 77 on defense. There's never a time when the ACC's been so down. Clemson's in kind of a slump right now. Florida State's going to have to rebuild their roster from last season. Your hardest scheduled game this year is Clemson at home. Like, that's it. The next hardest game is Miami. So, I mean, there's so many reasons for you. This should be the reason. This should be the year that you make a push for the ACC, and obviously you get into the playoff by proxy. I don't think they're going to have the ability to make a push at the national title, but there's no other time this year. I mean, you're losing Kyron Jones after that. So there's another time for Virginia Tech to me where you would say, hey, if Virginia Tech was going to win a national title or at least make a push for it, it's this year. And I don't see any other future where they do it again. Like, they haven't won more than 10 games. They've won 10 games once in the last 10 years.
All right, so Va-Tech got thrown into this mix. Ohio State, Missouri, Ole Miss, Utah, Notre Dame. Who are some other suggestions here?
I threw in Colorado.
And you threw in Colorado. I don't think they're in national title contention photo or pictures, but the teams otherwise that we mentioned all could see themselves playing for a college football playoff this year.
I think if you're Clemson, you have to be all in on at least making a playoff.
All right, they're all in. They're all, quote, all in, which means that next year It's not looking good if you don't win, right? All right. So we all agree that that's a lot of national title contending football programs that have a lot of them on the line this year, knowing that they're not going to have a lot next year.
Yeah,
that's a lot of teams. Let me throw some more into this mix. We're going to talk about Georgia's roster in a little bit. I'm going to give you a full number on the guys that I think are going to depart from this roster in the local hour, but I'm just going to tell you, it's a lot. All right. So after this fall in 2025, Georgia's going to be in whatever a rebuild looks like under Kirby Smart at the University of Georgia, okay? Texas will be in year one of Arch, all right? Dante Moore will be in year one at Oregon. Bama may be without Jalen Milroe, might be in year one of Ty Simpson. Michigan will be 2 years removed from whatever roster Jim Harbaugh created and still staring down the barrel of Sharon Moore recruiting, all right, and development, all right, with the whole roster departing. So what's that, guys? 12 schools we've rattled off already that we think in 2025 will have major, major questions. The landscape looks like it's really competitive right now with a couple of known commodities and a couple of things we believe in. I have no idea what 2025 is going to look like apart from 2 universities. I know 2 football programs exactly, or at least a good reason to believe what they're going to look like in 2025. It's Tennessee because of Nico Iamaleava, and it's Oklahoma because of Jackson Arnold. Outside of that, there is so much unrest after this fall. So all of you, all right, if you're a fan listening to this and you have a national title contending roster this year, you better hope you go get it, because there is some safety in this one. Next year, there is not for a lot of you. And I think that for the first time in a long time is the real. Like that we haven't had that in college football in a minute. I'm almost excited for 2025. I hate to look over 2024, but in 2025, I got no idea what the landscape of college football is going to look like.
And I feel like we kind of, to an extent, had this vibe last year. Like Alabama was replacing Bryce.
Correct. Carson Beck first year starting. I'm with you. We have these every once in a while, but like
Ohio State,
like all 12 national title contenders are going to have no answers. They're all going to be starting out new stuff just at the quarterback position.
I feel like, I mean, obviously this is a long ways away. I feel like it's going to get more clear of a picture when you get closer to the season. But looking at it right now, it does look like, holy shit, there's going to be almost like a mass exodus in college football this year.
It's probably going to end up being who wins the transfer portal. Like, who gets all the dogs out of the transfer portal next year? Because that's what a lot of these teams are going to have to be relying on if they want to keep up, if they want to keep tabs with what they're expecting this year. It's going to be go get the number 1 transfer portal class. See what happens.
See what happens. Speaking of seeing what happened today with the news of Connor Stallions getting a documentary based off of, or not based off him, he's going to be in it. Is that what I saw?
I don't know. He's going to be in it. I don't know if it's going to be about him or if it's going to be about Michigan.
Secrets. He's basically telling his side of the story. That to me is absurd. That to me is crazy. It's like one of the craziest things I've heard today. However, not the craziest thing about this story. The fact that Connor Stallions have a documentary made about sign stealing, by the way, that they're, I guess, getting away with. Like, this guy's going to talk before the investigation comes out. That's crazy. What's even crazier to me is that the University of Michigan let this man out of his contract, removed him from the program, and somehow didn't get the son of a bitch to sign an NDA? What? That is absurd. Y'all had this man going to games and illegally filming them, using that to cheat the game of college football. You fired him, scapegoated him, and didn't get him to sign an NDA? Holy shit. What? That is crazy. Fire the AD. Fire them all. Fire everybody. That is absurd. That is way crazier to me than the fact that y'all got caught cheating with a man with freaking rec specs on his head. That is crazy.
I have hesitancies about this documentary. I'm just going to, because think about it. This is the hype coming into Swamp Kings was like, oh my, we're finally going to get all the behind the scenes stories about Florida and that program and what Urban Meyer was. Are you going to pick up your pen?
I need that pen back. I need the pen back. But the point had to be made. That was absurd.
But going back to that, I hope that this is like all the secrets revealed. Connor Steins gives, this is my side of the story. This is who told me what to do. But I'm kind of worried it's just going to be a puff piece. Because coming into watching that Swamp Kings, we were so excited about, oh my God, we're going to get a story about Urban Meyer's Florida Gators and all these details. And it turns out it was just a retell telling of how Urban Meyer built a dynasty at Florida. Like there was no, like they blushed over everything, and I'm kind of worried that's what we're gonna get here.
It's kind of what we've only gotten recently in documentaries. I don't know if you know this, but all this stuff nowadays is almost they do a biopic. Whoever the biopic is on it's almost all self-funding and self-produced.
Yeah,
they're basically just doing a show how cool I am.
Yeah,
I'll pay for
and
it.
it's the Untold series, so it's like the same one that did the Johnny Manziel, same one that did Swamp Kings, same one that did the Manti Te'o thing, and every subject has been painted in a relatively positive light
Because of the access.
Exactly, but that's what I'm saying. Like I don't feel like we're going to get a lot of access to the stories that
I would have rather just not have talked to Urban at all in that 30 for 30, that Untold series. And then they could actually, I don't care about the access to Urban. Give me all the other stuff.
Right.
Because I guarantee you Brandon Spikes would have sat down and told the real. Had he been able to tell the real.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would have much rather have seen that. But still, the non-NDA on this stuff is crazy to me.
Yeah.
The man wrote a manifesto about how to cheat. And y'all didn't make him sign an NDA. That's crazy. Local hour?
Let's do it.
Local hour. It's going to be a loaded one, man. We got a whole roster overview coming your way in about 45 seconds and a potty break.
Welcome into Talk the Dog, the show where we find a bone to pick and a take to give. These are not hot takes. These is dog takes. Can I talk that dog? What's up? You like that? You really like that? Let's shut up and grab some tape.
We back?
We back?
We're back.
We back. How about that? Welcome into the local hour. We finna talk that dog. Appreciate you for being here. Make sure you hit that thumbs up button if you have not already. I should be saying. Got a good loaded local hour for you guys tonight. We're going to be giving a full roster overview. Talk about our SEC Media Day takeaways. There were some commitments while we were out in Dallas. We're going to talk a little bit about that. The 2024 schedule for Georgia, which is the hardest in 20 years.
Got to be.
Probably since 07,
Yeah.
maybe 17 years. Okay, the hardest schedule you've had in well over a decade and a half. It's actually a blessing in disguise, and we'll tell you why tonight as well. What a cliffhanger that is right there. I mean, my God, I'd stay around for the full hour. What about you
Always
guys?
should.
I'd subscribe too.
I would definitely subscribe. If someone cliffhang me like that, I'd be all over that subscription button. I might even hit that bell. You know, to make sure I don't miss anything. A lot of extra content going around this channel lately.
Yes, there is.
Be an interesting little idea there. Welcome in. Make sure you hit that thumbs up button. Shout out to Prize Picks, 100% deposit match over there. PrizePicks.com. Promo code Brooks. All right, here's how we're going to do this. Georgia's got a really good roster. All right, Georgia, we're going to preview it right now. All right, we're going to go up on that board and we're going to circle some things. We're going to talk about some things. But the real thing we're doing right now is trying to quantify to you the window that is available right now, all right, for the University of Georgia. 3 out of 4 is a realistic thing, and 3 out of 4 is something that probably needs to happen because I don't care how you feel about the ability for Georgia to rebuild and rebuild quickly. I don't care how you feel about the fact that they've recruited better or on par with anybody in the sport of college football. What the exercise we are about to do will really draw into or bring into perspective the amount of departures that will be made on this roster at the end of this year. All right. So I think it will basically pressurize this fall for you as a football fan. And here's the deal. It needs to be pressurized because there's an opportunity here for Georgia that might not be available, or at least might seem as feasible and as easily feasible following this fall. So let's head over to the board. Let's talk about it right now. Shout out to the Miller Lite shorts from Old Navy. How about that?
Old Navy got some good finds.
Not bad. Miller Lite shorts from the Old Navy.
Old Navy has definitely stepped up their game in the last few years.
Old Navy stepping it up just like we are here at the Film Guy Network. Check it out. All right, here we go. Zoom in just a tad bit here on 2 for me. Hopefully, hold on. We might have a cable in the middle of 2. Let's do this. Let's just unplug this B word. Love live programming. Please don't put that shot in 1.
I wanted to, so
You know, I know you did. That's why I told you not to do it, because you're a rebellious little bugger.
All right, here we go. All right, so here's first and foremost what we're going to do. I'm going to go through this list right here, this depth chart, and I'm going to mark out guys who literally have no more eligibility. This is their last year of college football. Whether or not they have a draftable grade, it does not matter. All right, these guys will be marked in pink. Rod Thomas, graduate transfer, he will be gone. Okay, so we're going to put an X right there. Colby Young, the same. Graduate transfer, he will be gone. Senior transfer. Okay, Arian Smith, you are a redshirt senior after this year. You are off the roster. Dominic Lovett, you are a redshirt senior. You are off of the roster. All right, next year. Tate Ratledge, where are you at? You are off of this roster next fall. This is your last year of college football. Xavier Truss, same thing for you. This is it for you, my guy. All right, last season, Benjamin Jurasic, you are off this roster no matter what next year. Carson Beck, sorry, my guy, you are off this roster next year no matter what. Yeah. All right, so that is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 guys on the offensive side of the football that are automatically, no matter what, see you later. Now, before we switch to the defensive side of the football, because it is a scroll down, and I don't want to do that to the audience, let's talk about draft eligible juniors who already have draftable grades. Okay, these are guys who already to date have done something on the football field in the SEC that will covet NFL interest. We all agree Dylan Bell meets that category, correct?
Yes.
All agree Dylan Bell meets that category. We will dot him. Ernest Green, 2-year starter in the SEC. We all agree he will meet that category at the end of the fall, correct? Yes. All right, Ernest Green, no debates there. Dylan Fairchild, we all agree he has a top 50 eval right now.
For sure.
All right, at least this channel believes that. Michael Morris ain't even started a football game. He's got an NFL draftable grade. We all agree?
Yes.
All right, so a little bit of hesitancy there from the chat, or at least from the room, so we'll circle that one in blue. All right, we'll circle that one in blue. That will be a debatable discussion here for us. Oscar Delp was at NFL Combine for early draftable grade kids. That's already indicating to you that he's got a draftable grade in the NFL. Oh, by the way, Trevor Etienne certainly fits this category of guys that have the NFL interest that will someday or potentially maybe head off to the NFL draft. All right, so we had 8 guys that are gone no matter what here in pink on the offensive side of the football. That's 8. All right, now here in yellow are guys that we think have draftable grades, could head off to the NFL after just 3 seasons. Dylan Bell, 1. Ernest Green, 2. Dylan Fairchild, 3. Oscar Delp, 4. Trevor Etienne, 5. With Micah Morris, we'll give it to you. All right, we'll give a return year for Micah Morris. That is 13 players on the offensive side of the football that could go to the NFL draft and already have draftable grades. Those guys are going. If they enter their name into the NFL draft, they will be selected in the top 7 rounds. There is no doubt in my mind. Right there alone, ladies and gentlemen, there are 3 selections away from shattering the total NFL draft record, which is at 15. They could realistically break it on the offensive side of the football alone. That is crazy. All right, that's crazy. It also means there's going to be a lot of rebuild in 2025, things that you have to answer. So that is a total number of 13 we're holding with a potential of 14 offensively. Please take a note mentally or write that down physically so we have that available. We got to turn the light. All right, let's go to the defensive side of the football. All right, again, same process here. We're going to go through with the pink, and we're going to mark off guys that are automatically, no matter what, see you later. Appreciate you for coming at the University of Georgia. You had a great career. Let's scroll down just a little bit so we got all of them. All right, here we go. Warren Brinson, see you, gone. Nazir Stackhouse, see you, gone. Won't be here next year. Smile Mondon, last year playing college football. Appreciate you. Chaz Chambliss, last year playing college football. Appreciate you. Dan Jackson, last year playing college football. We appreciate you. Who else do we got on this defensive side of the football? I think that's it. That's all the guys that already, no matter what, you're gone. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now we're up to 18. Right? We're now up to 18. Now let's talk about draftable juniors. Okay, draftable juniors. Everybody agree? Guys, first round pick?
For sure.
Michael Williams, see you. Y'all enjoy it. Great final year.
Chat's requesting a different color than yellow. They can't see it.
We're going to go with the blue. All right, Michael Williams. Oh, that's pink. Michael Williams, we all agree, draftable junior. See you. Right? He's that good. He gets all 3 colors. Malachi Starks, we all agree? See you?
Absolutely.
Yes.
First round pick. Bye-bye. Now, here's the discussion we were having before the show. One of these corners is going to the NFL draft. They better. They better, because what you can't have next year is the same thing you got going on this year, which is, hey, Daniel Harris, Ellis Robinson, one of you guys is an NFL football player, or both of you guys are NFL football players. Neither of you have an opportunity to start this year unless you beat out two returning starters. Unless you both go out there and beat out Dalen Everett and Julian Humphrey. Some of these guys, maybe both of these guys, might be nudged or need to be nudged to the NFL to clear up some room, because the guys behind them are extremely talented young players who Georgia realistically can't really afford to hit the portal, and that's kind of the nature of today's business. Now, Georgia has never, to my knowledge, indicated that a guy should go pro. You know how I know Xavier Truss is back on the roster? All right. And examples of Xavier Truss pop up every year where guys come back. Stetson Bennett was a prime example of this as well. Guys who come back for another year of eligibility and everybody's like, ooh, that might cost us a young guy. Yeah, it did cost you Brock Vandagriff. That's what everyone thought it was going. Everyone thought it was going to cost you Carson Beck. Everyone thought it might cost you Gunnar Stockton. Stetson returning cost you Brock Vandagriff. All right, but you take the great player coming back no matter what. Georgia has shown a tendency to do so. However, I think one of these guys, right, whether it is Julian Humphrey, all right, or whether it is Dalen Everett, one of these guys might be able to play their way into an NFL evaluation. All right, so we're going to count that as a half. Maybe we leave that off just like we left Micah Morris off. Nonetheless, look at the numbers. We're already up to 18, right, with these guys, right? That's 5 of these automatic gons. That's up to 18. We know Michael Williams is gone. That's 19. We know Malachi Starks is gone. That's 20. All right, we're at 20 with no ifs, ands, or buts. All right, Michael Morris plays his way into a draftable grade. That's possible. There's 21. These two corners, one of them goes. That's 22. All right, you're well past breaking NFL draft records. You're also well past the point of believing that you're just going to walk in to a 13-0 record in 2025, considering all of the rebuild. Now, here's what brings us, we'll save the discussion for the blessing in disguise about the schedule, but just general thoughts here, boys, on just how great the roster is now, but B, how quickly that rebuild's going to come there in 25.
It's exciting and it's very alarming at the same time because you have such a great roster this year. There's a lot of NFL guys. You're probably going to break the NFL draft record, but at the same time, this time next year, we're going to be looking around like, wow, there's a lot of holes to fill in this roster. And not to mention, you're going to have guys into the transfer portal from here. So there's going to be even more names on this list right now that will not be on the team next year. So
yeah, and the same questions were being talked about when they had 15 players taken the NFL draft. It was a lot of discussion of, can Georgia bounce back from that, and then can they overcome that? But at the same time, that same season, like, you knew what Jalen Carter was, and he was still on the roster despite losing Devontae Wyatt and Jordan Davis. You got Stetson Bennett back. You already saw a lot of your running back room despite losing 2 of your running backs that year as well. The wide receiver room was staying intact. Brock Bowers was a freshman that year. Like, there were so many things that were remaining on that roster, and it still could be that a little bit. Like, you don't know what this season will look like, and like the players that are going to stay, maybe you get a bigger preview of them this season, and I think you will. But as of right now, it is kind of polarizing of, man, that's great that we have all this talent, but also at the same time, 2025 is going to be interesting.
It would be like if the 2021 roster was immediately replaced by a year 1 starter instead of a year 2 starter at quarterback with Stetson.
Correct.
You know what I mean? There was so much departure in that 2021 roster after the first national title. You have those 15 draft picks, but there were 3 or 4 other draft eligible guys that went undrafted that were starters on your roster that year. So it was almost like 20 football players in that year, on top of losing those guys in 2022, like Jalen Carter that you mentioned, and like Brock Bowers now, and Ladd McConkey as well. The attrition over time has happened, but it's combining the first-year starter at the quarterback position. And I'm with you. I think the first initial kickback on that segment is, why is this guy panicking? Kirby's shown the ability to do this already. I'm with you 100%. However, I felt really, really comfortable. I felt like I knew Carson was going to be really, really good. I didn't know he was going to be great, but if anyone was standing here last year, I think I predicted he'd lead the country. I know I did. I predicted to start the season, Carson Beck would lead the country in third down conversion rate. That is such a shot. It's a home run Babe Ruth shot call. It's one of the best predictions I've had at doing this because the difficulty of doing so, to say a first-year starter is going to be that great on third down, the hardest down at the quarterback position. But I knew that because we saw what he did in 2022 in all of the mop-up opportunities. So I think, yes, the road schedule this year is brutal. The 5 top 25 football games are really, really crucial to win, and you've got to go 2 out of 3 in those road games. It's very, very important that you do so. But I think it's almost more important that you handle these football games in the rate that you should and the rate that you need to get Gunnar Stockton on the field in meaningful downs. All right. Tennessee Tech, that game's got to be in hand to the point to where to start the third quarter, Gunnar Stockton gets to play real football. All right. Same thing. I know it's an SEC football game, but the same thing kind of has to be done against Kentucky for us to see him in an SEC football game, to feel comfortable about the eval. I know they might feel comfortable in-house, and that's great. But as publicly, I have no idea. I saw 14 attempts against Florida State, and the jury, in my opinion, is still very much out on Gunnar. I will feel so much better if he gets 50 to 60 attempts this year because they blew out Tennessee Tech. They blew out Kentucky. They blew out Mississippi State. They handled Florida like they should. They handled UMass. Georgia Tech in Athens is a blowout in the third quarter. So you can get him in and play him against a Power 5 football team and get this dude comfortable, almost to the sense that you can actually develop an offense for him to be ready to run that offense come 2025 if he ultimately wins the job like we all presume him to do so. I will feel far more comfortable if I know for a fact they've got a really, really good quarterback coming in 2025 as opposed to just kind of this ambiguity about him that we have right now, because how else will we have anything other than ambiguity about him right now? We've only seen like 14 attempts.
I mean, not only that, getting to see Gunnar Stockton, but your wide receiver room is going to be depleted yet again this year. You're going to lose a good bit of wide receivers. You're going to lose Oscar Delp. You're going to lose Ben Urosic. That's another year of where this season you really need to see Jaden Riddell, and you need to see that entire tight end room, and you need to see all these other names in the wide receiver room, these freshmen, these up-and-coming names. You need to see those things because you need to have confidence in this offense, because we just went over and we looked at it. The offensive line, everywhere, all over the offense is going to be losing players. So it's really important that you get into that second and third string group.
Part of what stood out to me so much about that 2021 season was when Georgia would beat the shit out of teams, and then the twos would come in. The twos were making elite plays. Jalen Carter was body slamming guys. Kamari Lassiter was making picks. It was like, holy shit, these guys are only freshmen. We still got years of them. You need to see that on this year's roster because you're going to watch the future in a lot of these second halves of games.
And by the way, they very well could. We could be sitting here at the end of the year talking about, damn, Joseph Jonah Ajone looks like he might be the next one at defensive end. Holy shit, did y'all see what KJ Bolden did this year? My God, Ellis Robinson looked great in burn time. Zacoby White looks like he's going to be a playmaker. Man, they really hit on that. We very well could be, and honestly, we very well should be talking about those things at the end of the year if we're going to feel really, really good about their chances. But the good news is what we just talked about nationally. Everyone across the landscape of college football has these questions in 2025. Seems like everyone's loaded up for 2024, which is going to make this college football season incredible. So there you go. Jalen Walker obviously will be a household name. CJ Allen comes back in 2025. There are these names. There are. But we got to find 2023 answers. That's a lot. That's a lot of answers to be digging through the roster and find. And granted, who in a better position to do so than the University of Georgia with the way that they've been recruiting?
Yeah, absolutely.
We good?
Yep.
We're good. I thought it was the important part is the blowouts this year. They've got to handle things in those football games. All right, SEC Media Day takeaways. Who wants to start? Y'all want me to go?
Go ahead.
Let's do it. Let's rat-a-tat-tat. Let's get after it. All right, I got a couple of these. I thought it was very evident listening to Kirby, and I didn't even need to listen to Kirby during this past week. I listened to him after they lost to Alabama. There will be no chip. There will be no, we are practicing harder because we were cheated, or we are practicing harder because of that 3-point loss cost us an opportunity. We are practicing harder to avenge whatever. There's going to be none of that. This football team, and I was telling you guys this before the show, it might sound corny, it might sound cheesy, but it is the reality of the situation at some of these programs. There is no time to think about anything other than personal development and getting better. It's a team-oriented thing, do not get me wrong, but it is so pressurized at the University of Georgia because of how talented that roster is that if you're the left guard, you have nothing to think about other than to be consumed and getting better because Michael Morris is behind you. Right? If you're the starting linebacker that's playing alongside CJ Allen, if you're Smile Mondon, yeah, you just got in trouble. And guess what? The pressure on you just got much, much higher because Raylan Wilson is extremely talented in year 2. Jalen Walker's still lingering, and Jalen Walker ain't getting in trouble. All right. So there's that, right? At corner, same thing could be said. At star, same thing could be said. There is so much worrying and stress about becoming better, that there is no, I'm trying harder today because we lost by 3 in December of last year. That's horseshit. That's not going to win the rep during practice. What's going to win the rep during practice is knowing that you have to win the rep during practice to play on Saturday. Okay, we all understand that. So the idea that you're going to be obsessed with anything other than the standard at Georgia, it's ingrained into these young men to think that way robotically. And you could hear that. Smile Mondon was the first one to say in postgame after the Alabama loss last year, we didn't handle our business. So no, we're not going to complain. No, we're not going to say, woe is me. No. We had the opportunity to control our destiny, and we lost that opportunity. That's on us. Let's move forward, and let's make sure it never happens again. There is no, woe is us, we're carrying chips. That's very, very clear to me. The other thing that is very clear to me, 162 times in the 450 some odd days since the tragedy of Devin Willock and forgive me on the name of the staffer. Chandler LaCroix. That is not the proper time to forget that name. All right, since that day, 162 times it has been addressed in meetings with the entire team about this dumbass driving stuff. 162 times the staff has made sure that they are addressing this issue and doing everything as far as threatening to kick people off the team and kicking people off the team. They have done everything structurally and organizationally to make sure this does not continue to happen. So you know who is on now? It is on the players and the leaders in that locker room to make sure this shit don't happen no more. Because obviously the head coach, who we all believe is the greatest coach in college football right now, clearly whatever he's doing ain't working. So now it's on the players. And moving forward, I would imagine they are very stern with this. If you show a propensity to not pay attention, if you show a propensity to ignore this issue, if you show a propensity to be a dumbass behind the wheel, you're gone. That's it. End of story. All right, so the players are going to have to control this one moving forward. Carson's found the foos, baby. He has found the foos, and it was needed. Foos might be the show term, the moving forward, all right? Because it is very unique to this platform. In fact, people who just showed up are like, what the fuck is foos? It is a combination between the word fake and the word juice, because sometimes you need some fake juice in your life. All right, especially if you're an introvert, especially when your head football coach is telling you, hey, when we score, when your offensive coordinator is begging you, when you throw a touchdown, act like you threw one. Fake it. I know you don't care to be an outgoing, demonstrative, joyous personality, but guess what? Sometimes your team needs that. Sometimes being fake juice, sometimes having fake juice instills a sense of confidence in the teammates around you. Carson Beck's found the foos. Carson Beck got himself, the chat's already hit on it. Carson Beck done got him a bad looking girlfriend, whatever the chat's talking about. All right. Done got him the confidence. Done driving the Lambo. All right. Done did the 3,900 yards. Done completed 73% of his balls. He needs to walk around life with that level of confidence. I saw that in him at SEC Media Days. I saw a guy that believes that he's a guy. And that, to us, at least in my opinion, was one of these offseason needs that you absolutely needed. The other thing that is an offseason need and something that is very, very refreshing to someone who has watched Georgia go through these almost like 3-week to 4-week, month-long stints of mediocrity in terms of performances at times during the last couple of seasons. This schedule, the way it is laid out, it's not just that there's 5 great opponents on it. Maybe you can argue a 6th or a 7th, but it's the fact that those 5 opponents are scattered across of this schedule. There will not be afforded an opportunity for Georgia to sit on their hands this year and just roll the ball out. And I'm talking top to bottom, because for years on end, I have watched week after week of mediocre opponent and Georgia knowing, hey, we can walk out and do day one install offense and defense and win this game by 21 points, and everybody will be mad that we came out flat and everyone will yada yada yada, but our opponents will not allow us, or we will not allow our opponents to actually evaluate a real performance from us, because we can just walk through and roll our helmets out there today schematically and performancely. That is not afforded to this football team this year. We will watch Georgia peak throughout the year. We will watch Georgia give their best efforts from week 1 until week 13, and I don't think we've seen anything along that line, during the regular season. We haven't seen anything afforded to these guys like this in terms of you got to get up every single week.
Yeah, and going back to what you were talking about with Carson about this confidence that he carries, and I think we kind of saw a similar trajectory a little bit with Stetson. Very different people, I will say, so not very like similar in the sense of like very different personalities, but 2021 Stetson was very different than 2022 Stetson in the same way that 2023 Carson Beck is feeling very different than 2024 Carson Beck, like leading into the season, as in Stetson been there, done that, won a national title, kind of earned respect from people. Carson Beck still kind of earning some respect from some people in some areas, but at the same time led the SEC in passing his first year starting. Now he's a Heisman favorite. Now Georgia's a favorite to win the national title. You get to act a little bit differently about yourself.
And he's dating a Cavender.
Sure.
Do you want my takeaways?
Yeah.
Okay. I didn't know if you wanted me talking to Carson Beck. But no, one of my biggest takeaways was that, similar like we've all said, great coaches turn it on when they need to. Kirby Smart has never. I don't think Kirby Smart ever really enjoys talking to the media. And he came out and addressed the media this week and made it seem like he was very happy to be there. It seemed like he was excited. And there was probably, to some degree, he was. Yeah, he had Foos. The next one I had was that he's also now the number one guy. It's kind of been solidified in the way he was treated in SEC media days. I know as soon as Nick Saban retired, everyone kind of looked to him as, hey, Kirby Smart's now going to be the number one guy. It felt that way during SEC media days when he took the stage. And also when he had to sit down with Nick Saban and all that, it felt like a very passing of the torch moment. So that was one of my takeaways too. And of course, Carson Beck. I think Carson Beck is probably the last of his kind in the regards to it's a high-profile prospect who's willing to sit on the bench for X amount of years and then ends up being a high-profile draft prospect without transferring. I don't think you're going to see that much anymore in college football.
If Gunner becomes a guy.
Yeah.
That's it.
Okay, so Georgia quarterbacks.
That's about it.
Yeah.
Because I don't know anywhere else where this is happening. Other than maybe Texas.
Puglisi's on the same track.
Yeah.
If Gunner turns out to be a dude and starts for 2 years, then you're looking at Ryan Puglisi in 2026, and you're 2027.
Yeah.
You're handing him the keys over after sitting for 3 years. This is very much so an anomaly in college football. And in fact, I'm still dubious that it happens. It happens 2 more times. I'm very dubious. I was dubious it would happen the first time.
Yeah.
I'm very curious as to what happens there. We don't do a lot of NCAA talk. We haven't. CFB 25, but apparently every time people sim CFB 25, Ryan Puglisi is the starter in 2025.
For me. That dude threw 62 touchdowns and 4 interceptions and won the Heisman.
Is a guy.
62
touchdowns to 4 interceptions and won the Heisman.
Shit.
That's crazy.
That didn't happen for me.
The Rashada addition is so not telling. It's curious. Like, why add Rashada? Why not just add a body? Why'd you go get a great one? You know what I mean? Or at least a really, really talented one. Is it because you approach the quarterback room like you do every other room? I understand that. But I feel like we opened ourselves to a major discussion.
You did, but I think you're going to have that major discussion anyways, because you have to assume one of those guys is going to eventually transfer if they don't win the job. And I think that the kind of horror story of 2020 where you're running out of former walk-on Stetson Bennett, JT Daniels wasn't ready, the Dwan Mathis experience didn't go well, and you really didn't have a quarterback in 2020.
Scarred the man.
Yeah, I don't think Kirby Smart will ever let that happen again, which is why he's always talked about how he wants 4 elite quarterbacks. So that way, hey, quarterback X leaves, our 4th string guy was at once a top 300 prospect. He'll be fine. We can plug him in. We're not going to have to go to some walk-on or someone who necessarily isn't ready.
Very much so first world problems.
I mean, I think the Rashada addition, as much as it was a 2024 move in the sense of adding depth, like we have 3 quarterbacks now that we can feel comfortable moving into the season with this, as much as it was a 2025 move as well, because you're going to lose Carson Beck, but then you, at the very least, you're going to have Gunnar Stockton, Rashada, Puglisi, and then Ryan Montgomery, who's kind of not really in the picture because he's going to be a true freshman. But that's a much better place to be than next year you move in with Gunnar Stockton, Ryan Puglisi, and Ryan Montgomery, who are all 3 scholarship quarterbacks, but one of those only has in-game experience. The other 2, we haven't seen it yet. We haven't gotten them out there yet. Whereas Rashada has some college football experience to him. He has been seasoned a little bit, maybe with just some salt and pepper, nothing else. But at least he's got some experience that he's bringing.
What's the best case scenario for Georgia?
The best case
at the quarterback position. Carson goes first overall, and then what happens?
And
best case scenario.
Then you get Gunnar Stockton for 2 seasons. Or you even can say 1 season. Gunnar Stockton plays at an elite level. Then you go to Ryan Puglisi, and he plays at an elite level. And then or Ryan Puglisi or Jaden Rashada, one of the two.
I was about to say, so the best case scenario in most people's minds when they lay this out is that Jaden Rashada never plays it down at Georgia.
Or it's either Jaden Rashada or Ryan Puglisi don't play it. One of those two, I think.
Here's my question. Because we got in this conversation last year with Carson Beck, and there's verified evidence to it for it to be a viable discussion. But with the expanded playoff, do we keep having this discussion of 1 season isn't enough? Like, say Gunnar Stockton goes on all the way to the national championship. Who cares if he wins or loses?
Starts 16 games.
16 games. I mean, a full NFL season, regular season, or a little under it now, but that's 16 games now, and 16 and four of those, or it could be 4 of them. Like, could be postseason play as well.
Apart from Anthony Richardson, none of those small sample size guys were elite traits.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I think you can overcome this limited sample size if you have enough traits that make people, want to bypass the risk.
Right.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Whereas, like, if Gunnar Stockton were 6'5", threw the ball like, Caleb Williams and ran it around like Cam Newton, I don't care how many starts the damn guy's got. If he's the Amarius Mims of quarterback plays, he could start 8 games. We'll take him in the first round. It doesn't give a shit.
Yeah.
But if you're just, a guy that wins with cerebralness or competitiveness and he's got limitations physically, I'm not saying Gunnar is that, but Gunner's closer to that discussion of we've got to see the large sample size than he is this ungodly talented freak that God placed on this planet to play quarterback on the NFL level.
What is the sample size now? Is it still 20?
Yeah, it's 25. It's 25 starts is what they're looking for.
Okay. Because I was saying Richardson started the back half of 2022, so he started about 20 games for Florida.
He almost got to the number.
Yeah.
He's going to be far closer to the number than what Gunnar will be after year 1.
And I mean, who's to say that if things don't go well for him the next 2 seasons, I mean, that might scare off more scouts.
Yeah.
I mean, you missed 12 games last year with a shoulder injury. Like, Anthony Richardson very well could be a bust, and it could very well scare guys away from going, hey, traits don't even matter anymore. You got to have 25 starts.
Yeah.
But that's an NFL discussion.
It's just interesting, especially to lay it out like, hey, what's the best case scenario? And then everyone to a man's like, oh, Gunner's a 2-year starter, and then Puglisi walks in as a 2-year starter, and then we never hear from Rashada.
This feels like the first time, and maybe I'm just not remembering it correctly, where the future of the quarterback position has felt, you don't know what's going to happen, but you have an idea at least. Like going through 2017 and 2019, it was like, well, who's going to be the quarterback after Jake Fromm leaves? Like, no one really ever knew that.
That's a good point.
You kind of wondered the same thing with Stetson. It was either going to be, hey, it's Carson Beck or Brock Vandagriff. Now you have a list of names who it's going to be.
The security of a succession plan, is nice.
It's very nice.
It's nice to have, and a lot of it is based off longevity. Like how long's the guy been in the system, and then we'll give that guy an opportunity to go. We even saw this at the UAB game. Stetson had been there 3 years, even though Carson was the 2. When JT went down, we're going to make y'all battle it out, and then we're going to favor the old head. It's exactly how that worked out. And I think we need to remember that moving forward.
For sure.
I know we talk about it at other positions, but we rarely talk about it at quarterback, that sometimes it's just going to boil down to the older guy. It's been that way at every position battle.
Every single one.
With Kirby. Dating back to 17. Every single one. The old head prevails until the young guy steals that shit from him. Think Keely Ringo, Amir Speed. Think Jalen Carter, Julian Rochester.
Malachi Starks, Dan Jackson.
Michael Williams over Robert Beal. Okay?
Yeah.
These are what we're talking about if there was a crossover there. It's definitely Michael over Tyrion Ingram Dawkins.
Yeah, Beal was drafted in 23.
Okay. So nonetheless, there is a propensity to make the old guy win. Or make the old guy lose, rather, than the young guy win immediately.
All right, so here's the question then. This is getting deep into the weeds. What if it's an older guy, but the younger guy's been in the system longer?
Oh, like a transfer?
Yeah.
Then, it's longevity within the system.
Okay.
The consistent stacking of performances that we know, predictable behavior, predictable performance as well. That's what he seems to favor. Guys that he knows can get the job done. And the Jalen Carter, Julian Rochester thing in 2020 really hammered it home for me.
Yeah.
When I'm watching y'all on the road and everybody knows that Jalen Carter is a dude and he is sitting midway through the second quarter, 6 possessions in behind. And Julian Rochester was a damn good dog. He played for a long time, overcame a lot of injuries, did a lot of things to keep wearing that G on his chest. But he is not Jalen Carter, and we all knew that. And watching that, I was like, "Oh, this is a thing you need to note and remember about the head coach that you cover. This guy very much so prioritizes longevity and continuity within the program. So,
absolutely,
very important to note. And I think I would probably do it the same way, even if I recruited at the rate that this guy does. Trust the old head first, especially in big games. So that makes sense to me. Any other SEC Media Day takeaways?
I had a couple. Just a very different Kirby this year than some other years. I think that it gave off a different vibe to me than it has in previous years. Felt a little more relaxed. Felt a little more just, hey.
He got fake news too.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. Everyone was like, of course he didn't get asked about the speeding tickets.
Oh, yeah.
He talked ad nauseum about the speeding tickets. He just didn't do it up there on that stage.
Yeah, did not expect Taylor Swift to get a shout out during Kirby Smart's.
The Swizzler.
Yeah, that was a little interesting to me. Did not have that one on my bingo card. So yeah, just a little bit of a different vibe from Kirby, which I don't think is a bad thing. I think that he's also entering a point in his career where kind of maybe need to change things up a little bit, and you kind of need to have this different vibe to yourself.
The vibe I got from him was he was a guy who felt somewhat relieved. You're not going to ever say it or admit or at least say that the pressure is weighing on you of winning a national title and having to go back and win another one. And then, hey, the word three-peat got thrown around so much this time last year that it felt, I'm sure it felt kind of nice to go up there and say, hey, we're just going to go out and try to win another national title. We're not worried about keeping streaks. We're not worried about maintaining all these standards. While we are doing that, it's not the main focus of what everyone's going to ask us of, the three-peat. Like, I felt like the three-peat got hammered home so much, and the pressure of just you have to keep winning national titles. Not having that coming into this year was kind of nice, I bet.
All right. Swizzle's name got brought up here, and I want you guys' help here. Okay? I want you to call bullshit or tell me if you believe. Okay? Hop up in an Uber out there in Dallas.
All right.
And we're doing the thing with the Uber driver, having a general conversation. The topic of most famous person you've ever driven got brought up. He said this really tall...
Bullshit.
Bullshit. Thank you. All right. He said this really tall girl in a red wig hopped up in his Uber one time, and as soon as she closed the door, she started laying down in the back seat underneath the windows. And he starts talking to her about, hey, where do you want to go? She says she wants to go to get some sushi. And first of all, he's in like a Chevy Equinox, like just a standard Uber. Okay, standard 4-door car.
If she's doing Uber, she's doing Uber Black at the minimum.
That's what I'm saying. All right,
at the minimum.
Picks her up at the Omni, drives her around, gives her sushi suggestions, takes her to the lesser known one with less noise around it, because he is of the belief that Taylor Swift just hopped in the back of his car. And then he starts talking to her about how, she has anyone ever told you favor Taylor Swift? And apparently she made a joke about how, my girlfriends tell me that all the time. And then once he recognized or called her out on being Taylor Swift, apparently she switched to a British accent. Okay, so she starts talking about it in this British accent, and all of a sudden she starts talking about how her girls from college have always told her that she looks like Taylor Swift. And I was like, well, she was obviously bullshitting, because people from Britain call it university. They don't call it college. And he was like, I know. That's how I knew it was Taylor Swift. Did he drive Taylor Swift or not?
No.
I'm thinking no, too.
Because it was just her in the car?
Just her in the car. Just her in the car.
Taylor Swift gets wheeled into her concerts in a crate.
This is what I'm saying. I'm like, bro, no way Taylor Swift's hopping up in an Uber all by herself. I don't care even if she does have a wig on. She's Taylor freaking Swift. And here's what he said to this. It was giving off a teenager trying to escape her parents. Like, she wanted to be alone. She just wanted to have a moment of normalcy, of going to get sushi with a red wig on.
She's got enough money. No.
I'm calling bullshit too. She could have rented out the whole damn sushi.
Now, what year was this?
I didn't ask that.
If it's like 2012, 2013, maybe. If it's anything in the last 5 years, no way.
Chat says it was actually Hannah Montana.
Bro drove around some Instagram influencer. That's what happened.
That's funny.
You think so?
Yeah.
That's funny.
I think bro went into real depths to make sure that was
that I get to tell this story.
Way too many unique lies.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? The red wig, the switching up accents, the multiple sushis.
How do you know it was a wig?
I mean, a red wig's pretty obvious.
Yeah.
Like, are we talking like red or like red hair?
He said platinum red. A red wig.
Platinum red. Okay. That's interesting.
At first, his first thought was bachelorette party.
Taylor Swift's also not staying at the Omni.
I don't know, man. Where would she be staying? The W?
I couldn't tell you where else you would be staying in Dallas, Texas.
I mean, the Omni was kind of dope.
The Omni is a very nice hotel, but Taylor Swift's not staying there.
All right, so that Uber driver is full of shit. We'll talk about that.
I have a second takeaway.
You have a second takeaway?
A second takeaway.
Oh, my bad. We cut your takeaways off.
No, it's okay.
Go ahead.
That was a good conversation to have. My second one is Kirby is the guy in the SEC that everyone wants the Quizlet from. And what I mean by that is when you're getting ready to prepare for this test, and the test being the 2024 college football season or any college football season, everybody goes about it their own way, doing it, studying up, doing all this stuff. Well, then you bump into the smart person in the group and you're like, what have you been studying? And they tell you, oh, well, I've been with Phil Knight this offseason, and I've been with the New Zealand All Blacks this offseason, and we've been talking to them about how they operate and how they do things. And you're sitting there with, well, shit, we've been watching Nick Saban's ESPY speech every single week trying to motivate our football players, and Kirby Smart's talking to Phil Knight and the New Zealand All Blacks. So he does things so uniquely, and it puts him outside of the box of everybody else. So he's the guy everybody wants to quiz it from.
Give me the Quizlet.
Yeah.
I like that.
I need those notes, bro, because you're doing something different than I'm not even in this realm.
Let me get that test key, fam.
Yeah.
That's a good little observation right there. Should we get into these latest commits, or should we talk about some of these misses, or where should we go? Where should we go right now?
Let's do the commits.
All right, let's do this right now. Let's talk about Cortez Smith before we go watch Rashad Johnson's tape. Cortez Smith just committed, 2 days ago to the University of Georgia over schools like South Carolina, and I think Florida might have been in the mix. Whoever it was, doesn't matter. He's a dog. Was meant to be a dog for quite some time. This was a kid that started 7A football as a true freshman at the center position at age 13. He's a young kid. Okay. He's going to graduate high school at 17 years old. All of the things I'm about to tell you remind me of Cedric. I'm not saying he's going to be Cedric. I hold Cedric at a very different level than probably any center that might ever play at Georgia ever again. Just from mentally how superior that guy was of a football thinker than anybody I've been around or studied at that position in quite some time. So I don't know if he'll ever be that. However, he's the closest thing since 2020 when they signed Cedric, okay? Lifelong center, has played nothing other than that, and is born to do so. And if you haven't played the sport, and if you haven't played the position of offensive line, the uniqueness of a center's brain is foreign to you. It's hard to quantify. In fact, you're probably one of those people that thinks you can just slide any old body up into there and expect them to perform. It's not the case. It is very unique to that unit. It is very unique to the sport of football in the sense that the nose tackle doesn't hold this for the defensive line. The edge rusher over there doesn't hold this for the defensive line. The Mike linebacker might, but everyone compares that guy to the quarterback. The defense doesn't have a second pseudo quarterback that controls one of the lines or one of the position groups. The center position is that. Cortez is this. He will walk into college. He will understand mic identifications. He will understand protections. He will understand run fits. He will understand how to lead a unit because he's been doing so ever since he started playing this sport. And that is very unique to him. In fact, they haven't signed anybody like this. So I'm telling you, they've been signing tackles that are really, really massive that they hope one day to convert if the guy can't survive out there on the edge. This is not this guy. Okay, so I feel really, really good about his ability to have a very high floor. The ceiling is as questionable as any 6'3", 315-pounder is going to be in the SEC. If I just give you those measurements, the ceiling is going to be questioned no matter what. Just like the ceiling on Cedric was questioned when he went to the league. All right, it's the same exact motto here with Cortez. I really, really like the addition, and I really, really like the idea that
there are a bunch of 5-star caliber tackles in this class, and they took swings on them, and they missed on some of them, right? Think about Zaire Addison, who I think is the best tackle in the class. They missed on that. That's a Florida kid going to Oregon. That's not great. I know Stacy spent a lot of time down there with him, okay? That was a priority in this class. They missed. All right, so Zaire Addison was a miss. David Sanders is going to be a miss in August when they commit. All right, they spent a lot of time the last 3 years trying to get David Sanders on the roster. He's going to go elsewhere. We'll tell you why over on patreon.com/Brooks Austin one day. The full story. All right, so there's that. All right, Nick Brooks is out of the state. They might end up signing him. They might end up getting him committed. But the 5 guys that I know in December they're going to have in their class, or at least I feel really, really good, 99.9% positive they're going to have in their class, they're all from the state of Georgia. Juan Gaston in August, I am almost putting everything that I love on the fact that he's going to be a dog because they can't afford to lose that guy in the state. He's a certified Sunday football player, and he plays offensive line. Georgia ain't missing that guy. They never really have. They're not going to allow it to happen. So they're going to get him. Damola Ajidahun is also a guy that I believe is going to end up in this class from Duluth High School. He's a really big, long Nigerian tackle. Sign me up every single day if that kid exists inside the state. Mason Short, already committed from Augusta, in-state. Cortez Smith, already committed from the state, Parkview High School. Donnie Glover, already committed from the state, Langston Hughes High School. They're going to sign a top 3, top 5 offensive line class across the board, ranked amongst anybody in the country, and they're going to do so from the state of Georgia. That's really, really good. That's really advantageous, and it's really easy. It's really easy to do that inside your home state, and it's beneficial for them to do so, considering some of the misses that they've had on the trail this class.
I mean, it's one of the reasons why Georgia's able to stack up so many great recruiting classes, because while it may not be like the same position every year that's stacked up with talent every single now, Georgia usually has some good offensive linemen, but when you have these classes, like defensive line classes here in the state of Georgia, for example, like Trey Scott and that staff is doing a good job of what it looks like are going to absolutely lock it down. And the same can be said for this year. When they have this massive pool of talent within their own state, by their school, within the borders, they lock it down and they make sure that those guys don't go anywhere else. And it plays a huge role in them being able to get these consistently top 3 recruiting classes.
Does it benefit Georgia to, and obviously it does because you continue building on in-state talent, but does it benefit Georgia to have an entire class that's full of in-state guys? Or is this just kind of hey, it just so happened that there's a lot of talent in the state this year and we were able to go get it, and it's kind of not coincidental that this happened, but it's not going to happen every year?
I think it's more coincidental that it happened this year because if you just look at the perennial rates at which takeable guys come out of the class. Last year, if you look at the list, I'm looking at the top ranked players in the state of Georgia last year. Daniel Calhoun was the 10th ranked player in the state, the highest ranked offensive lineman. And you have to go all the way down to just outside the top 24 when Caleb Holmes committed to Pitt is the next highest rated offensive lineman. So this is a very uniquely gifted offensive line class from the state of Georgia. And it's ideal that he can go out there and pretty much circle who he wants in Sharpie and just walk away from it knowing that I got 5 takes from my state. Malachi Tolliver was his take from the state last year, but that was more of this guy loves Georgia. We're going to take this guy. It's one of those in-state takes we talked about a couple weeks ago. That's not an in-state target. That's a must-have. Mm-hmm. That was a guy that they added into the class last year and immediately slided to center once he got to school. So it's a very unique circumstance this year, and they're almost lucky in the sense that it happened because if you miss on Zaire Addison and, a guy like Damola isn't a quality enough player to be a take like was the case last year, then you do have to go searching nationally for guys like Marcus Harrison. Mm-hmm. So, great question. Should we talk about our man Rashad Johnson?
Let's watch some film.
Let's watch some film before we talk about some of these misses on the trail as of late. All right, Rashad Johnson, haven't watched the tape. This is a safety prospect. Is he out of the state of Tennessee?
Florida, I believe.
Florida. All right, here we go. Let's watch some tape. I like the stance already. He's checked in. Ignore this. Really close to the box, standing at about 8 yards right there. Oh, he made a play on that.
Well, he did.
I mean,
he put someone in the hospital.
I thought he put somebody in the hospital. I thought he was going to make a play on the football. There he made a play on the football. Run your feet through that. Let's catch that in the air. Let's not have to dive. Come on now. Offensive snap here. He's number 4, right? All right, he's got some burn. got some good knee drive here. We didn't even have to highlight you. Watch how high those knees get up in this knee drive. We talked about this on this channel.
That's a quick release.
Yeah, it is. All right, and our knees are getting near parallel the entire time. We got loose.
You turn that on?
Huh?
Turn mic on?
I guess I turned it off. I guess I was sitting at the desk the whole time with it on. That's unfortunate. All right, good call on the chat right there. Getting my mic turned on. What were you thinking, Kirby?
Let me watch a couple more.
Yeah, that's what. That's my thing. We're 90 seconds in and we're watching more. And here's a minute in, we're watching more. We got an inline tight clip right here. We can definitely track the football.
From an athleticism standpoint, I definitely get why they took him.
And here's the thing about defensive backs at the University of Georgia, the takes rather I should talk about. They care about the tape. Don't get me wrong. They care about the tape. But the only way to be a take at the University of Georgia at defensive back is to come in camp.
Yeah.
All right. So whatever the evaluation we sit here and make is 1/10, 1/20th of what they're actually evaluating this human being on. Prime example, Ja'Cory Thomas. Ja'Cory Thomas is not a University of Georgia Bulldog if he doesn't camp the way that he did. All right. He comes up to camp. He plays nickel. He plays safety. Will Muschamp is blown away in camp. Then they have a private workout with the rest of the defensive staff during that camp session. And then all of a sudden, Ja'Cory Thomas is a University of Georgia commit 14 days later. All right. I'm not saying this is the case with Rashad. I'm telling you that there's no realistic reason. There's no sensible reason for us to sit here and me go, ooh, see, you talked about athleticism. I see lack of twitch right here on this tape. There is no immediate life in any of this. Right, but we're watching tape. We don't know. We watch in person. They might see something during a workout that shows all the issues here. I also see a really thin body.
Yeah.
I see a guy who's playing right now at 175 pounds on tape. What's he listed at? He's probably listed at 185, 187. The tape looks lighter. Again, things that I wouldn't know. I don't know 100% with certainty unless I go see this individual and weigh him at camp.
It says 6'2", 200.
I'm calling cap off the film. But again, the film could lie. The film could lie about this cat. You said 6'2", 200?
That's what it says.
That is a huge defensive back.
Is that him in the slot? I don't see 6'2" there.
I see good ball skills.
He's got great hands.
He's got great hands.
Okay.
All right.
Not extremely elusive.
That's what I'm saying. The twitch is a little bit lacking. All right, but the overall long speed's there. The fluidity in the athlete is there. Honestly, just the frame and the way he holds it. You tell me he's 6'2", 200. That's what KJ Bolden's listed at. And KJ Bolden in high school, I would have told you he's rolling around at 185. Okay, right. So maybe he's holding the weight a little bit thinner than some of these football athletes do. KJ Bolden, again, the same example.
That could also be not in season weight.
Could be not in season weight. Could have been visit weight. Could have been whatever weight. There is some reasons to be positive about that addition. There are also some reasons to say this isn't quite the guarantee that KJ was, or this wasn't quite the guarantee that Malachi Starks feels to be.
Mm-hmm. Sure. And that's where you go and put your trust in Kirby Smart and say, hey, a guy like Chris Smith, this could be what you have, where a guy develops for 2 years and then becomes one of your better safeties that you've had under Kirby Smart. So we'll see. I mean, you got at this point, like, you put blind trust in what Kirby and his staff do, especially
at certain positions.
Yes,
that's one. I'm not blind trust in everything, but I will blind trust defensive back, linebacker, offensive line. We'll just give you that. You just have those because apparently you know what you're doing with those. What was he? I'm trying to figure out what he's ranked.
I have it pulled up right here.
All right, so he's a 4-star, but he's not ranked nationally on. How's that possible?
For me, it says that he's ranked 388th
on 24/7
composite.
But composite. Okay, so he's not ranked by 24/7.
No.
How is that?
I don't know. 24/7 only has his position rank and state rank.
And his state rank, but no national rank. The composite has him inside the top 400. I think that's solid. I might have to go see this individual. I don't know how, especially since 7-on-7 circuit's out of it. Looks like he was a big time 7-on-7 player. I think that's a Houston Heat jersey he's got right there in his 24/7 profile, which means this individual was basically a hired gun on the 7-on-7 circuit. And if you're that, you're probably pretty good.
So there's that. All right, let's talk about some misses on the recruitment trail. Bless you. As of late, 3 names just this past weekend: Derek Meadows, Christian Gass, Bryce Davis. Bryce Davis committed to Clemson. Christian Gass committed to Tennessee. Derek Meadows committed to LSU. I'm gonna tell you this about LSU: the faucet has turned on. I think that is obvious right about now. Brian Kelly, good recruiter. Brian Kelly must have been influxed with a good bit of resources as of late, because this man is going out and landing big time recruits at a high rate. Landed the Pickett kid, I believe the corner. Mm-hmm. They landed Derek Meadows. Neither of those were cheap, I would imagine. So there has been some resource allotment out there at LSU. That is obvious to me on the recruitment trail. Christian Gass was a situation where you're kind of running into this at a multitude of places. I felt like Travis Smith was this as well. In-state kids that would love to play for Georgia, but they're going to get about a 75% pay increase if they were to go somewhere else. And here's the deal. I'm going to talk about this until name, image, and likeness comes back to a settlement, okay, and comes back to regulation, which it's going to, and I would imagine within 18 months of this statement, we will have some type of NIL regulation. We won't be in the wild, wild west. However, until then, by all means, football players, use your leverage, because you've got it, and the rest of your career you might not. You know how I've explained it this way, and I talked about this in the Discord the other day, and I wish fans would hear this a little bit better and take to this a little bit more, because you're very, very quick to say, oh man, he just wanted some money. You're very quick to do this. Yes, he did, and there's a reason why. Tom Brady is unmistakably, unargumentatively the greatest football player of all time. We all can agree on that in a world that we don't agree on anything. All right, we agree on that. Tom Brady had true FU, pay me what I want leverage 3 times. Once with New England, right as he left. Mm-hmm. Okay, again, the first time he signed with Tampa, he could go wherever he wanted. He chose Tampa. And then the sumbitch faked retirement and got whatever he wanted again out of another contract. And had Robert Flores not sued the NFL, I'm pretty sure he would have had partial ownership of the Miami Dolphins and been the starting quarterback there. All right, but that's Tom Brady. And that took 22 years of NFL football, of being the greatest to do it. And he had leverage 3 times, maybe 4, if you really want to argue it. And now you're telling me, as a 4-star linebacker out of Eastside High School, I've got bargaining leverage? I've got real, measurable, quantifiable leverage upon where I go and what I'm paid to do? Guys, use it. Use it now, because it might not be ever there. As a matter of fact, I'm going to guarantee you, it will not be there forever. So yeah, wield your leverage. And if someone's asking you to take a 55% pay cut or take a 60% pay cut just to wear the G, and you don't want to do that, I'm okay with that. I am okay with that. However, I take the pay cut to play for Glenn Schumann. That's what I would have done. That's me personally. But that's that. Bryce Davis wasn't a pay thing. It was Clemson. What it was Isaiah Gibson's in the class. You still want to come? That's what it was. So I'm not saying ducking comp, but I'd be ducking the comp. Also, if you're calling the University of Georgia about somebody that got added into your class, let's just say you're a quarterback in the 2024 signing class, and they sign another quarterback, and they call you and say, hey, we're signing another quarterback, and your first thought process is, man, I really don't want to compete within my own class. Buddy, wait till you see the roster when you show up here. Because, yeah, you got to compete against the other guy that committed in your class. But, dude, you got a whole depth chart to climb. And these other guys are older and better than the guy that's in your own class. So why are you worried about your own class? You're going to get swallowed by the big sharks once you get here. That was the primary thing there. And that's something you got to pay attention to. I promise you right now, if you're a 4 or 5 star out here and you think you want to play for the University of Georgia, you best not be worried about competing against guys in your own class. You best be worried about what happens when you get there. All right, because there are great football players already there. We good?
We good.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, appreciate y'all for being here. Make sure you hit that thumbs up button on your way out. Love you. Bye.